My name is Zach Sawyer, and tonight I'll be serving as the chair. This is the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for September 7th, 2023. First matter of business, citizen comment. And we had a total of 10 people sign up before the deadline. So before we call you up, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Staff will time each citizen and provide a warning when they have 30 seconds left. So, first person we have signed up is Holly Humphreys, speaking on agenda item 6.1. Yes, ma'am.
Kristen? Where's Kristen? I have photos and I don't know how to get them up on screen.
If you'll please state your name and address.
Yes, sir. My name is Holly Humphreys. I live at 3008 26th Street, 79410. Advance it where? Right here. Yep. Okay. All right. I'm here to support the proposed amendment, which is number 10, that is offered by Cindy Prattis, Richard Murphy, item C, and item D, Stephen Falk. And this pertains to limitations on vertical mixed use in residential neighborhoods, that the standard for vertical mixed use shall not apply on a block containing single residential family homes, and that the maximum building height for vertical mixed use should not be 75, but changed to 45 feet. And here's why. I was on faculty at UT Austin from the year 1995 to 2003. During that time, I saw on the drag of Guadalupe Street, which is, you see on the, is there a map? Does the map show, Kristen, up on the screen?
It's not showing.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if you'd like to pause while the technical issue gets corrected.
And how do I activate the pictures?
You won't do it. Our communications is not working on it.
Okay, keep going.
Are you sure? Okay. Anyway, on the map I had included in the photos, I showed Guadalupe Street, which forms the western boundary of the UT Austin campus. And during the time I lived there, I started to see the neighborhood right behind Guadalupe become compromised and razed, and buildings destroyed that belonged to families who own single-family homes to make way for high-density housing for the 55,000 students that packed into UT after the university had to start accommodating the top 10% of the graduating high school students in Texas to try to accommodate diversity. Now, originally, a lot of those single-family homes provided rental spaces for UT students, to include my TA. It was a safe neighborhood. The students lived and walked to campus. But once that high-density residential housing started to go in place down Guadalupe, which is also known as the drag, all things started to change. And in 2017, it is noted that there was crime. 2 students were murdered, 2 attacked, several in the hospital, and all along Guadalupe, things started to get very, very dicey. What I'm concerned about is University Avenue, 19th Street, which incorporates the historic South Overton neighborhood, Terrace neighborhood, and Heart of Lubbock neighborhood to the immediate southeast, will become like what happened to those neighborhoods in Austin. So it has been said that high-density residential zoning needs to be put in force and allowed in those areas, but I had seen what happens. And for all the pronouncements that tech is growing and growing and needs this, tech will only grow by 4,000 students between now and 2033, according to the Texas Higher Education Board statistics. So this is Chicken Little saying that the sky is falling. Tech has 2 dorms planned, and we have already vacancies in the area that would accommodate those students up till 2033. Thank you.
Okay. Next, we have Mont McClendon.
My name is Mont McClendon. I live at 16th and Salem and work at 1500 Broadway. Mainly I'm here along with Terry Holman just to re-urge those items on the UDC amendments list that we presented last time. We're here to show that we care. We're happy to answer questions, clarify anything that requires clarification. Terry will offer color commentary if you ask him to. But more than anything, we would ask that you pass those things that we've recommended to the board, and on my own behalf, item number 14 on your list, which was the proposed changes to the zoning districts downtown. Other than that, I'll give you back the rest of your time, and I appreciate your service.
Thank you, Mr. McClendon. Next, we have Roger Settler, here to speak on item 6.1 as well.
Thank you, Chris. Honorable Chairman, Vice Chairman, members of the Commission, I'm Roger Settler, 2120 Broadway, a lifelong resident of the historic Broadway corridor. I rise to speak representing the Congress of Neighborhood Associations, which has replaced LUNA, and the historic Overton Neighborhood Association. We rise in support of 10C submitted by Tech Terrace and also the amendment submitted by Stephen Falk relating to 45-foot limits on high density and the possible presence of high density projects in residential neighborhoods. I also rise in support of Tanya Hagee-Valdine's amendment relating to parking, which is another density issue. We believe that the neighborhoods have long, the older neighborhoods in Lubbock, which are represented by the Congress, 10 of us in all, have been ignored by the city for far too long. And this recent push to bring high-density zoning will create the kind of travesty we have in Overton North. And yes, I do submit that Overton North was a travesty and that it displaced thousands of people to be replaced by high-density units, which have not contributed to the value of the city at all. In fact, despite the much-wanted tax revenues supposedly brought in by the new developments in Overton North, the TIF had to come to the city for tax funds for graffiti removal, $800,000. And you think, what's up with this? Obviously, it hasn't worked out the way it should, and high density never works out the way it should. In the big cities, the term tenement is used to refer to a lot of these developments. And we find here in Lubbock, the developers who bring these high density units quickly flip them to out-of-town interest. And once that happens, the quality of those projects go down. People start moving out because of the lack of maintenance, the lack of proper care by the out-of-town corporation. So I would urge you to look carefully at these amendments relating to high density, height restrictions, and parking restrictions. Thank you very much.
Next, we have James, I think it's Mahon. Also speaking on 6.1.
Yes, that would be correct. Hi, my name is James Mahan. I live at 3302 22nd Street. I'm here to speak in favor of the adoption of number 10 on the list. That means I want limits on vertical use on blocks zoned for RE, SF1, and SF2. Why am I here? I kind of got tied into this through neighborhood association stuff over the course of probably 40 years. What we're talking about is 14 words, actionable words in that, pretty small. So why these 14 words? In the course of the development of the UDC, there were a number of properties that end up with odd use designations. A home chiropractor office turns into a high-density residential zoning on the map. seems a little odd. We talk with the city staff about it. They say, yeah, we know there are some of these. We have a plan to review those over the next year or so. They'll be all sorted out. I have no doubt. And I have no doubt that most of those instances are going to be completely benign and involve minor changes. We believe that some might be more problematic, and that's high-density residential is inherently problematic, in my opinion, when it's placed into single-family residential. Those are two things that don't mix well, and we have some instances where that could happen under the adopted UDC. That is yet to be reviewed and straightened out. One of those areas of concern, Boston University, 19th Street, that's an odd one in that we spent over a year going through a political process with everybody on that. And the council finally made a determination that they didn't think the high-density residential was appropriate there. Yet the consultants who prepared the UDC map apparently thought it was. So there's a little conflict there. How do we deal with that? We will see these changes take place in the future. We believe, though, that this inherent problem of mixing high density with single family probably needs to be addressed now so it doesn't happen in the course of the year that we look at changing it. If you approve this amendment, we put a stop on it at this point. And then after the staff goes through its review process, they will have a recommendation for those properties, and they can be properly addressed then, and perhaps this amendment becomes moot. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you. I'm going to, Mr. or Mrs. Hamilton, I believe.
Oh, Mr. Me.
All right, sorry.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. My name is Alastair Hamilton. I live at the intersection of 20th and Detroit. Thank you for this opportunity again to talk to you this evening. I'm here to speak about Amendment 10C, the one that was proposed by Tech Terrace. By now, I think you're all quite familiar with the problem, which is that under the rezoning of the UDR, high-density residential districts were scattered amongst single-family zone neighbourhoods. And although we're obviously very concerned about how this affects our neighbourhood, it should be emphasised that this is a problem that affects the whole city. We're very conscious and mindful of the significant work that has gone into the UDC, both by this committee and others. However, we do feel that this is a problem that needs to be addressed. Although we identified a number of amendments that could be proposed, we decided to submit just one amendment which we felt dealt with the problem most directly. That was the amendment which says that there should be no use of the vertical mixed use standard on a block with zoning for either RE, SF1 or SF2, or to put it more succinctly, to prevent the building of 75-foot tall buildings on blocks zoned with low density residential zones. Some things that have been mentioned about this amendment specifically is that section 3902.018CA provides some limitations on the application of the HDR standard, in particular requiring buildings on any given block face to be essentially built using the same standard. That's one of the things that was brought up as being one of the things, but maybe we don't need to have this amendment. However, there are a number of problems with this particular section, and I'll mention just one, and that is it doesn't take very long looking at the map to identify a number of areas where this particular section does not apply. Some examples are 29th Street between Quaker and Peoria, 52nd Street between Avenue X and Avenue W, 37th Street between Frankfurt and Englewood, and I could go on. But in those particular areas, you have one block face consisting entirely of HDR and the other block face consisting entirely of single-family zoning. And there are a number of places like that all throughout the city. One thing that should be mentioned is that This provision wouldn't prevent developers from using the other significant and generous categories available in the HDR thing, like anything except vertical mixed use, and it also wouldn't prevent there from being single-family homes on the same block as something using vertical mixed use, because you're allowed to build single-family homes in the medium-density residential and the high-density residential zones. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Mr. Richard Murphy, speaking on 6.1.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you again for your time and attention. My name is Richard Murphy. I live at 2911 20th Street, and I'm speaking also to Amendment 10C. The idea behind Amendment 10C is, you know, to prevent the HDR zone from authorizing 75-foot tall buildings in places with low-density residential zoning. What's being distributed to you is a letter that I had hoped you would have a couple of days ago. But in all honesty, I misunderstood the system for distribution of these letters. So I'm sorry that it comes to you so late. I'd hoped you have it a couple of days ago. There are three main points that the letter makes. One, you've just heard actually from Alistair Hamilton, which is that the amendment actually addresses a real problem. At the combined meeting, the argument was made that we don't really need the amendment because there are so many different restrictions, such as block face, that it's just an imaginary problem. But as Professor Hamilton identified, there are a series of properties where it seems these limitations would not be material impediments to development. About a dozen or more of them are listed in the letter. The second point is just to acknowledge an elephant that has been sitting in the room. It came up at the combined meeting, and that is one of these properties is 19th Street. Now, 19th Street, the properties at issue are currently slated to be a mix of heavy commercial and HDR. I think we can reasonably expect that, I don't want to put words in the developer's mouth, but one might expect the developer to seek rezoning of the HC portion of that property. Why would one say no? It's kind of crazy for that property to be zoned HC, at which point, under the HDR, the developer would then find themselves with legal rights to create a 75-foot tall building on the same spot where the city council, by supermajority vote after months of contention, rejected a 60-foot tall building as too big. I think community members may find themselves surprised. So that's the elephant in the room. The third point is that actually the amendment preserves city discretion. The amendment would create a default rule that you can only go 45 feet tall, 45, that's plenty of stories right there for some purposes, on a block where there's low-density residential zoning. But you can always ask for more. The UDC allows for a developer to request greater density and get a specific use permit. So it's just that the developer would need to persuade the city that it's a good idea to have a building taller than 45 feet on a block that has low-density residential zoning. And with submission, that seems to me a very reasonable thing to expect. Thank you very much for your time again. Appreciate it.
And did everybody get a copy of that letter? Do we have enough? Okay.
I do have one more.
Good, we're okay.
Okay.
Okay, next signed up, Mr. Stephen Falk.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, my name is Stephen Falk. I reside at 2827 23rd Street, practice architecture at 2022 Broadway, own that property too. I've found that my amendment is really a reaction to two things. The fact that both the property came under review on 19th Street and the one in South Overton was rejected by council. But then when you look at table 39.02.004.E-2, you start going across, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 uses that limit the height to 45 feet. Now, I'm an architect. I'm assuming you know that. I can get 4 stories in 45 feet. But then there's this 75-foot vertical mixed use. My concern is several things. If this passes or is adopted and not amended, that is an as-of-right height. That means that a developer can come in and put if you happen to live in one of the high-density districts, and I'm just not talking about Tech Terrace or South Overton, I'm talking about every district that is high-density residential, can build a 75-foot high building as of right. Nobody, no other citizen, no other neighbor can have anything to say about it across the street from your house if you happen to live in that district. As of right. The citizens of Lubbock, whether you want a 75-foot high building or a 45-foot high building or no building, they need to be represented by your commission, by the city council, so that everybody has their input. This was a real surprise to me to see that 75 feet. 45, 45, 45, 45, 45, 75. Change this chart or this table to allow for vertical mixed use of 45 feet like all the other 6 as of right. But that if you want 75 feet, go through the process for a specific use that comes before you. There can be citizen input, comes up to council, citizen input, so every citizen, every property owner is represented by this UDC. Now, I really want you to think about it. You're probably saying there is no way that anybody's going to come into my neighborhood and put a 75-foot building. If I assemble the land and get it rezoned, I'm going to drop a 75-foot building if I want to do a vertical mixed use. You as a property owner and underneath that scenario have no say in that scenario. Give this city, give the various neighborhoods that the high-density housing zones are in, give the council the flexibility to look at individual cases that want to go to 75 feet high. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Falk. Next, we have Mr. Jim Bertram.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, my name is Jim Bertram. I reside at 57 South Lakeshore Drive, Ransom Canyon. I represent the Lubbock Heritage Society and a number of other Lubbock citizens who have been concerned about sign and billboard standards within the UDC. I noticed that in one of the amendments that's been submitted under section 39.02.014, reduction overlay districts, that basically allows a developer for a large-scale development to come in within that reduction overlay district and eliminate certain uses that he feels might not be compatible with his development. Within that, it's my understanding that one of the sections listed specifically billboards, and the wording was at the election of the applicant. At the time of the creation of amendment of the reduction overlay, such overlay may prohibit billboards, even if allowed in the base zoning district. It's my understanding that that section recommended by the Developers Council was stricken. I'm not sure who by, possibly staff, but it seems reasonable that if a developer is putting in a large-scale development and they're risking the capital for that, if they feel for whatever reason the billboards are not a compatible part of that development, they should have the right to eliminate them. So it simply suggests that that be reinstated and put back in there as recommended initially. Thank you for your time. I'll give the rest of my time back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bertram. Okay, next we have Tanya Hagee-Valdine. Did I get that right?
Good evening. I'm Tanya Hagee-Valdine, and you said it right. Everybody says Hagee, so thanks for that. I live at 1704 Avenue X. and I'm going to tail onto them and say I'm in favor of 10C, but I also want to speak to the parking amendment. And I believe it landed as Amendment 13. Am I correct? That was submitted by Mary Kreitz?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not going to be as eloquent or as on point as she is, but I did want to come in her stead since she is out of the country and just talk to the proposed reduction in the ratios for A3 parking, specifically because a lot of these A3 developments that are looking to come in are student housing. And looking at what is this called? It's not a graph. Anyway, looking at this chart, the reduction on a 708 bed from 635 required spaces to 428 is of utmost concern, especially considering that so many of these HDRs that are being proposed in the areas around Texas Tech, like the Tech Terrace project, like the South Overton project. That's a step backwards. We're already up against insurmountable odds with that many people coming into these residential areas. But then you're talking about not having to require developers to give them the required 635. We're going to go down to 428. You're talking about neighborhoods who already are experiencing an overwhelming lack of parking. And when you are going to let somebody build that's this big and take away 100 and something parking spots, where are those people going to go? I can tell you where they're going to go. They're going to go in front of my house, down alleys, in front of my neighbors' houses. We already had a party in South Overton this last weekend, and we had to call the police because they were parking on both sides and in front of people's driveways, and we had to come clear it out because we couldn't get out our driveways, we couldn't get down the street, and if you move kids in permanently, that's going to be an ever-present problem. So I feel like this amendment is a step backwards for our city. It is definitely a step backwards for our neighborhoods where a lot of these are being considered. I think it's odd that we don't look at student housing the same way we look as a dormitory. Apartments are people with kids, people who want that separate bedroom for an office, for a workout room. Student housing is a dormitory. Whether you call it a dormitory or not, it is marketed to students, it is rented by the bed, the amenities are student-specific. You're not going to have families living there, and every one of those kids, by and large, will have a car. So, thank you.
And then last, we have Ms. Cindy Prattis.
Good evening, Cindy Prattis, 3118 20th Street. And 2 years ago, I was in this lobby, my first exposure to the UDC, and it was crazy insane, and I didn't understand it, and I tried to understand it, and I asked, what's there to understand? I came to the March meeting the following year at one of the libraries, and I said, I don't understand it. It's 700 pages. I still don't understand it. What do I need to worry about? Not a thing. You really don't need to worry about a thing. So I didn't worry about a thing. 1 year ago, I started learning about zoning when we were introduced to the 19th Street Godbout property. And I did get a little bit better understanding of the zoning. And we went through all of this. Y'all were here, we were all here, we went through it. And then it was over. And then I came to the March meeting this year, and there were these beautiful maps all around the room that had all the zoning that was going to change with the UDC. I said, oh, that's really cool. I'm going to look and see what's happening in my neighborhood because I don't need to worry about anything. And all along the strip of 19th Street, it was HDRHC. Now, we are not targeting, although it's been said that we're targeting, because when we looked at other pieces of property within the city, there's that HDR within neighborhoods throughout the city. And so it really caught my eye because of the experience that we had. So I did start doing some research. I met with staff. They were fabulous. Kristen's really been terrific. Robbie's been wonderful. Worked with us. I visited with a couple of city council, really trying to understand what's going on, how's this going to affect us. Don't worry about it. Okay, so Chapter 39 was the first part of my research that I saw. It said UDC was to consider land uses and zoning changes in relation to the comprehensive plan and future land use map. That map that was adopted by the city indicates commercial light retail for 19th Street from University to Boston, not HDR and HC, which is what the UDC will bring to it. There's also a segment of this right in the center, just south of Tick Terrace Park, that's all homes. And it will be rezoned to medium-density residential. It's weird. We got some real quirky stuff in our neighborhood. So I understand that future land use map may or may not have been used. I think there are a lot of people who really don't know how the decisions were made, why they were made. There's a lot of questions that are still unanswered. So I really encourage you to look at that 10C. We've introduced it because it's real simple. We had some very complicated ideas of how we could do. I thought maybe we just need a Band-Aid. So I think that's what we've got is a Band-Aid. And if you look at that 10C and say, this will take care of it. Amendment number 6, what do we have to lose? Moving it from 200 to 400. A lot of neighbors are really interested in knowing what's going on a little bit broader than the 200. Amendment 7, consideration of family. We've got 2 or more or 3 or more. It's not gonna hurt mixed families. It's really hard to enforce anyway. It's an enforcement issue. It's when an issue arises that probably it gets reported. If you are going to keep it at 3 or more, you might want to look at the little piece that's under group home definitions that says 2 or more. And then additionally, please consider that gap, whether it's a 2-week gap or an extended gap between the adoption of the UDC and whenever you put these amendments in place. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes citizen comment. So next matter of business, we need to approve the meeting minutes for July 27th. Other button.
Motion to approve. Second.
Second, Brandon. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay. Now we will get into the consent agenda. I need a motion for item 3.
Motion to approve consent agenda items.
Second.
Second, Avi. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay, Rule 15, plats. We will hear from staff. And just for the record, the applicant has requested item 4.1.4, Inler Park, be denied. I believe they're resubmitting the following P&Z meeting. So do we need a vote on that, or can we just pull it off? We will need a vote? Okay. 4.1.4. Okay, we'll hear from staff.
Good evening. This is a Rule 15 plat. It's Ferguson Acres, Lot 15B. The applicant is Hugo Reed and Associates. This plat is located east of Research Boulevard and south of 19th Street in West Lubbock. The applicant is requesting approval of sewer and pavement delays. Here is the plat. And here are conditions from engineering, GIS, and planning. Staff recommends approval of the plat with conditions and approval of sewer and pavement delays. Can take any questions at this time.
Any questions for staff? If not, we'll need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second, Terry. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 4.1.2.
Hello, this is the Ferguson Acres Lot 16 and 17. The applicant is Hugo Reed and Associates, requesting a Rule 15 plat with sewer and pavement delays. Here's the submitted plat under review. These are the conditions found from engineering, GIS, and planning. Staff recommends approval with conditions, sewer and pavement delays. I can take any questions at this time.
Any questions?
Motion to approve item 4.1.2 Ferguson Acres.
Second.
Second, Avi. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? 4.1.3, hydrate.
Good evening. My name is Ashley Padilla. This is Hydrate Tracks A and B. The applicant is Abacus Engineering Surveying for Rule 15 plat, requesting a pavement delay. The property is located east of Aspen Avenue and north of East 66th Street in East Lubbock. Here's the plat. Here are conditions from engineering. More conditions from engineering, GIS, and Lubbock Power and Light. Staff recommends approval of plat with conditions and pavement delay. I can take any questions.
Any questions? Pavement delay? Any motion?
Motion to approve with pavement delay.
Second, Terry, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? And 4.1.4, do we need staff to present since it's for denial? Okay, then we'll need a motion.
Make a
again.
motion to approve item 4.1.4.
Okay, all in favor?
No, wait a second.
Oh,
Second.
second, Mr. Wheatley. All in favor? All opposed?
Aye.
Okay. You did it right. That was a good motion. I get it backwards all the time. 4.1.5.
Hello, Board. I'm Greg Hernandez with the Planning Department, and this is the Neal Addition plat, Lot 1. The applicant is Hugo Reed and Associates for a Rule 15 plat requesting sewer delays. The plat is located north of 4th Street and west of Alcove Avenue in West Lubbock and the Lubbock ETJ. Here is the plat. Here are engineering conditions. Here are GIS conditions and Lubbock County conditions. Additional Lubbock County conditions. And staff recommends approval of the plat with conditions and sewer delays. And I can take any questions at this time.
Questions? We need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second, Jordan, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay, now we'll jump into zone cases. We got quite a few. All right.
Okay, good evening. My name is Shane Spencer, and this is Zone Case 59-B. The applicant is Roberta Beam, and the request is for a zone change from General Retail District C3 to Commercial Apartment District CA. The subject property is located south of 34th Street and east of Boston Avenue. We have sent out 34 notifications, receiving back 2 in favor and 1 in opposition. Here's that notification map. The one in opposition appears to oppose the proximity to residential uses. Here's the aerial map. There are businesses to the east, north, and west with single-family homes to the south. And here's the zoning map. Properties to the east are zoned commercial district, C4, with general retail district C3 to the west, local retail district C2 to the north across 34th Street, and single-family district R1 to the south. And the future land use map here designates the subject property for commercial land uses. And here are photos of the subject and surrounding property. The future land use map designates this area for commercial land uses. This request does not conform to this designation entirely, but would be appropriate next to adjacent residential land uses being a mixed use. Therefore, this request is in moderate conformance to the comprehensive plan principles. The proposed zone change is in conformance to the zoning ordinance, and the property is located along a major thoroughfare and is appropriate adjacent to both nearby residential and commercial uses. The proposed zone changes compatible with the surrounding area will not change the character of the existing development, and this location is along 34th Street, which is designated as a principal arterial by the master thoroughfare plan. Staff recommends approval of this request, and I can take any questions at this time.
Just to verify, the commercial apartment's more restricted than C3.
Yes.
Pretty substantially. That's limiting what they,
There's a
more so than what they're allowed to do today.
Yes.
Okay. So it's a down zone. Okay. Any questions for staff? Okay, thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Is the applicant here or his or her representative? Like to add any additional comments? Yes, ma'am.
And Mr. Chairman, while the applicant comes forward, I just wanted to take a moment and announce that item 511, zone case 2538JJ, has been withdrawn by the applicant and will not be heard tonight.
Thank you. 5.11. Sorry, anybody here for 5.11? I should have said that earlier. Has been withdrawn. Yes, ma'am.
Hi,
If
I'm
you state your name and address, please.
Roberta Beam, and I reside at 70 Pony Express Trail in Lubbock, Texas. The property that is in proposal is at 2613 34th Street. It's a nursing home. It used to be a nursing home, so I have purchased the property and I'm wanting to make a short-term rental with the property. So if y'all have any.
Short-term rental, is that for nursing home tenants or just?
No, sir. It used to be a nursing home. We are doing an Airbnb. 6-bedroom Airbnb.
You put in your letter, it's going to be 6-bedroom short-term rental. Is it going to be 6 separate units, or is it?
No, sir. It's all together in one building, so it's 6 bedrooms inside. It's
Okay, but what I'm
shared
is it
space.
gonna be individually rented, or is it all be rented as a group? Or?
All be rented as a group.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
Okay.
Any questions?
Any questions for the applicant at this time? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this zone case? Not seeing any. Is there anyone here to speak in favor? Not seeing any either. Okay, then we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And
For matters of discussion, I'd like to make the motion to approve zone case 59B.
Second.
Second, Susan. Any questions? Personally, I like it because it's a down zone. It's more restricted than C3 on that floor.
Yeah, we don't see a lot of CA requests, so I'd like to have Kristen kind of further explain what CA is for everyone.
Sure. CA is our commercial apartment district, so it allows apartments in addition to a handful of commercial uses, one of them being a rooming house. So different from a hotel, which would require C4 zoning. A rooming house allows 3 to 11 occupants, so this fits what she is trying to do at this property.
Okay.
Any others? Discussion?
None for me.
Okay. All right, then, we'll call the question. We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Next zone case, 5.2, 5 Points Corporation.
This is zone case 0092A. The applicant is 5 Points Corporation for Heather Hollingsworth, requesting a specific use for an event center on property zoned local retail district C2 at 4228, 4230, and 4232 Boston Avenue. We've sent out 34 notifications, receiving 1 in favor and 1 in opposition. This property is located south of 42nd Street and west of Boston Avenue. Here's the notification map. The one in opposition has concerns about traffic and trash. Here's an aerial view of the property. The properties to the east are developed with single-family homes zoned single-family district R1 and commercial businesses zoned restricted local retail district C2A. To the south and west is an apartment complex zoned multifamily district R3. To the north are single-family homes zoned two-family district R2. The current zoning is local retail. Here are photos of the property and its surroundings. Here's an aerial view of the proposed location of the event center. And here are a few graphics provided by the applicant. The proposed specific use is in conformance with the zoning ordinance and would be appropriate in the established shopping center. The proposed specific use is compatible with the surrounding area and will not change the character of the existing development. The proposed rezoning location will be along 42nd Street and Boston Avenue. 42nd Street and Boston Avenue are both designated as collector streets. Staff recommends approval of this request, and I can take any questions.
It's the only question I've got. It's not for that entire shopping center, it's just for specific parts in it, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Can you pull up which ones it is? They are.
Those
I know the
three.
first one it was showing the whole center, and that's where I was
Mhm.
questioning.
So this is the area that it will be in.
So it's going to be the first three that were.
And those pictures are-
United or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm. Those pictures of just those three buildings.
Okay. That's all I have.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff? Okay.
Thank you.
We'll open the public hearing, and is the applicant here or his or her? Yes, ma'am. If you'll please state your name and address.
Yeah. Heather Hollingsworth, 2302 91st Street. My brother and I own the Modern Manor Shopping Center. It has essentially been a place for the arts. Billy Joe's School of Dance went back to the 60s. I know because I was there 60 some odd years ago. Basically, now it's a theater. We want to keep the theater intact. You'll probably have a copy of all the things we were thinking about doing. We brainstormed, and really, we're not going to try to do all of that. We're not married to everything. Specifically, what we want to do going forward at the beginning, keep the theater, have dance classes, theater classes, art classes, homeschool classes. We currently have the Youth Artists Guild, which does youth theater and classes. We're going to probably postpone weddings and quinceañeras and these types of things that will require, or that would have more people coming. We kind of want to ease into it, you know. Let's see, but I added that we would like to have kind of an after hours couple of events like an open mic, comedy night, improv, cabaret, karaoke, and they were also interested in extending it to teens and youth and having a teens karaoke, games, board games, theater games. And I understand that there's an opposition to this, and I was reading over her letter. And basically, I don't mean to dismiss her letter at all, but I think that she didn't really have a good idea of what it is we're trying to do, because she's saying that people drive very fast and there's a lot of garbage in this area. We wouldn't be doing that. And we have a vast parking lot, so cars won't need to park in the residential areas. I'd like for you to take that into consideration, that I don't think that her concern is applicable. I think that's it.
Any questions for the applicant?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here that would like to speak in opposition of this zone case? Okay, not seeing anyone here to speak in favor. All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing.
For matter of discussion, I'd like to make the motion to approve zone case 0092A.
Second. Second, Brandon. Any discussion? I think it's awesome.
I think it's a good continuation. And it's probably even going to be better, especially for that area. If they can get that done, that will help.
I agree.
Things around in there.
Anybody else? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, that'll go to City Council. 5.3.
Before I begin, I received 3 additional letters. These are 3 additional letters. All right. This is zone case 0769-A, and the applicant is Omni Sacred LLC. The purpose is to rezone from R1 to R2. 29 letters were sent out. We received 3 back in opposition. Plus, I have received 3 additional opposition letters during the meeting for a total of 6 opposed. The property is located south of 69th Street and east of Canton Avenue. Here's a notification map showing the 3 in opposition we received prior to the meeting. The concerns are that the ability to cherry pick a property to be zoned for 2-family occupancy is established in an established single-family neighborhood sets a bad precedence. They believe that occupants of a duplex housing tend to be more transient in nature and not responsible for maintaining the property in good conditions, lowering property values for responsible owners in the neighborhood. Multiple families with multiple drivers could cause problems due to inadequate parking availability. Here's an aerial view of the property showing the property surrounded by single-family housing. The current zoning map shows this property surrounded by single-family district. The future land use map designates this property for residential low density. Here is a picture of the subject's property as well as views to the west, east, and north. The future land use map designates this area for residential low density. The proposed zone change to R2 would not be in conformance with the future land use plan and the comprehensive plan principles. The proposed zone change is not in conformance with the zoning ordinance. This property is located in a neighborhood zone single-family district. The proposed zone change is not compatible with the surrounding area and will change the character of the existing development. The subject property is in the middle of a block zone single-family district, and approval of the zoning request would result in spot zoning. The location is along 69th Street, which is designated as a local street by Master Thoroughfare Plan 2018. Staff recommends denial of this request, and I can take any questions at this time.
Okay. Staff recommends denial. Any questions? While y'all are passing those letters down, I believe all 3 of those are on 69th on this street. So, all right. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Is the applicant here or his or her representative? Yes, ma'am. If you'll please state your name and address.
My name is Rose Jackson. I'm here representing my daughter, who is the owner of the house that in question. And she divided that part of the house because she comes to Lubbock frequently. She's in the military and she lives in Baltimore. And she comes to Lubbock frequently and she didn't want to rent, go get a Airbnb or stay in a hotel. So she cut that part of the house off so she can stay there when she comes to town. So it's a rental property already, the front part of it. The back, she'll be staying when she comes to town. So I don't see the objection of multifamily in this situation.
Okay. And would you mind stating your address? Did we get the, okay.
My address or her, their particular address.
Your address.
My address is 4226 East FM 1585, Slayton, Texas, 79364.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this zone case? Yes, sir. If you'll please come forward, or if you want, and state your name and address, please, sir.
My name is Dale Hobbs. I live at 2529 69th Street in Lubbock, Texas, 79413. We have a nice neighborhood there, single family, and that's why most of us are there. And we object to the multifamily rental property. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in opposition? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Planning and Zoning Commission. My name is Ann Nixon. I live at 2526 69th Street, directly across from this house that now wants to be a duplex. I first received this letter informing me of this meeting 1 week ago today. I'm dismayed at the short notice I was given to prepare. Not only was it only 1 week, but it was over a 3-day holiday with the government office closed on Monday. I had no idea that my neighbor intended to make this a duplex. I was not given that courtesy. My opinion is that the rush job of this meeting tonight is to force through with as little input as possible from the people that it will affect, like me. This letter that I received last week, when bold print said, "This is the only notice you will receive." I showed this letter to one neighbor, and their comment was, they never got the letter. Excuse me? Another neighbor is out of town. I'm not sure when they will return. I have no idea if they got this letter or not. This last Tuesday, September 4th, I was the first person through the door at the Lubbock County Appraisal District, located at 2109 Avenue Q. I attempted to meet with an appraiser to find out information on the zoning change. I was told that they were out in the field and I could make an appointment. But of course, the meeting is tonight, so there was no time for me to arrange a meeting with the appraiser around my work schedule. Due to the short notice to prepare, I have no facts and no figures to give you. The idea that only one house is to be a duplex is ludicrous. If it is granted to this one house, who else on our street will also want to make their house a duplex? If you grant it to this one house, you will grant it to all houses, forever changing our quiet neighborhood. I'm sure the value of my house will fall, possibly even dramatically. Since I do not know the exact size of their house, I'm assuming it is the size of other houses on the street, about 2,000 square feet, more or less. Since I could not talk to an appraiser, I asked around. The unanimous opinion of everyone I talked to said that anyone willing to rent half of a single house of that size that had been divided into two will not be putting down roots, nor will they stay in our neighborhood. This property will be a revolving door of first one renter and then another. It is also everyone's opinion that our street is not wide enough to handle the parking or the increased traffic. They all agreed we should expect the crime rate to increase. It boils down to this. I understand these neighbors are evidently hurting for money. Why else would they divide their house? But everyone is hurting for money as far as I can tell. I do not think one family should be allowed to financially hurt everyone else by causing a drop in house value of all our other homes. Nor should they be allowed to add parking or traffic or raise the crime rate just so they can make a few bucks with a duplex. Thank you for your time, and I do apologize for my voice.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in opposition? Okay. Anyone here to speak in favor? All right, not seeing any, we will close the public hearing.
For purposes of discussion, move to approve.
Second.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't put a duplex in the
Middle of the block.
middle of a block surrounded by single family.
No, that's just, and really, if you think about it, it's not even really truly a duplex. It's just a house that you divided up.
Right.
Anybody else? Anything?
A quick plug for the 400-foot notification boundary, just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
And I do respect that she's in the military, and I understand that, but I just, in the middle of a neighborhood that's established, I just don't, I agree it's not appropriate.
It's the thin end of the wedge.
Yes.
Responses only. Okay. Anybody have anything? This is recommend denial. So.
Recommend approval. Just gotta make sure how you vote.
That's right. So, everybody understand? We always mess this up. All right. All in favor? All opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Good job, everybody. 5.4.
This is zone case 3488. The applicant is BW Gas and Convenience Retail for Buffalo's Partners, LLC, and CMH Properties, LLC. The purpose is to rezone from T to C3. 3 letters were sent out and we received 0 back. The property is located north of 98th Street and west of Highway 87. Here's an aerial view of the property, showing the property surrounded by vacant lands to the south and east and city limits to the north and west. The current zoning map shows to the south Interstate Highway Commercial, to the east Interstate Highway Industrial, and the west and north are city limits. The future land use map designates this property for commercial uses. Here's a view of the subject's property as well as views to the west, east, and south. Here is a site plan provided by the applicant. The applicant is proposing an Allsup's gas station. The future land use map designates this area for commercial uses. The proposed zone change to C3 would be in conformance with the future land use plan and comprehensive plan principles. The proposed zone change is in conformance with the zoning ordinance. The property is located at the intersection of a principal arterial and a freeway. The proposed zone change is compatible with the surrounding area and will not change the character of the existing development. The location is along 98th Street, which is designated as a principal arterial, and Highway 87, which is designated as a freeway by Master Thoroughfare Plan 2018. Staff recommends approval of this request, and I can take any questions at this time.
Can you pull up the site plan? Any questions for staff? Okay, just leave that up there for a minute. Thank you.
No.
Okay, we'll go ahead. We'll open the public hearing. Is the applicant here? Like to add any, yes, sir.
Good evening. I'm John Boynton with Atwell Engineering, representing BW Gas.
Do you have anything you want to add? Anything you want to add to it?
Well, we certainly think that this is a favorable project for the area and is a use that is best fit for this corner. We look forward to bringing this project to the community and the new jobs that will accompany it.
Okay. Anything else for the applicant? Looks like diesel on the west side.
Yeah, high-speed diesel and 12 MBDs for auto use.
Okay. Thank you.
Sir, could you repeat your address real quick?
Thank you, Brandon.
My address? 7306 Orange Tip Road, Houston, Texas, 77493.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this zone case? Anyone speak in favor? All right, not seeing any. We'll close the public hearing.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Susan motion, second Brandon. Any questions, comments?
It's pretty cut and dry, pretty simple.
Yep.
In that good location.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. 5.5 for SK Architect Group.
All right, this is zone case 2968D. The applicant is SK Architecture for James Morgan, requesting a zone change from Apartment Medical District AM to Garden Office GO. The subject property is located south of 98th Street and east of Orlando Avenue. We sent out 27 letters, receiving back 1 in favor. This is a notification map showing the 1 in favor. Here's an aerial view of the property. To the north and south is residential homes. The east is developed business, and the west is a church. The current zoning is apartment medical. The northern and southern property is zoned single-family district. The east is zoned apartment medical, and the west is designated as high-density apartment. The future land use map designates this as office property. Here are some photos of the property and its surroundings. Here's a rendering of the proposed development by the applicant. This request conforms to the principles of the future land use map and is in conformance with the zoning ordinance. The proposed zone change is compatible with the surrounding area and will not change the character of the existing development. Located south of 98th, designated as a principal arterial street by the 2018 Master Thoroughfare Plan, the subject property is a vacant lot which is conducive to garden offices. Staff recommends approval of this request, and I can take any questions at this time.
Can you pull up the aerials? Any questions for staff?
Is there a site plan on this one?
No site plan from the applicant.
All of that's really pretty recent development, except for the credit union, which was there before. Matter of fact, I think some of the others to the east are still for rent, or for lease.
Any questions for staff? Okay, thank you. Is the applicant here?
Do you want it back on the aerial?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Hello, my name is Alex Burns. I'm with XK Architecture Group at 6302 70th Street. We are requesting rezone from this lot from apartment medical district to garden office district. Currently, the proposed development will be commercial garden offices that will be leased out to typical professional offices with normal business hours. And we're happy to answer any questions that y'all might have.
So James Morgan, the same group did those 3 smaller garden office buildings on the other side of the credit union, right?
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So it's going to be, all right.
And if you'll see, if
didn't
you
know
go
that.
back and look in 2018, it was GO when we had it zoned to AM. Don't really know the reasoning why, but it'd be going back to what it was originally, or previously, I guess.
And how many buildings are you going to put on here?
4.
4? Okay. Any questions for the applicant? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this zone case? Or in favor? All right, not seeing any, we'll close the public hearing again.
For matter of discussion, make the motion to approve zone case 2968D.
Second. It's a good spot for them, and it's,
Well, it's kind of a continuation of what's got started there and going down, so.
yeah, they've done a good job. It's taken a while for that area to finally come alive, and now it's
Starting to.
so it's going to be good.
Any other discussion, questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Next, 5.6 for 17 services.
This is zone case 3351B. The applicant is 17 Services for 2 men and a baby, requesting a zone change from local retail district C2 to interstate highway commercial district IHC. The subject property is located south of 114th Street and east of Indiana Avenue. We sent out 16 letters, receiving back 2 in favor. This is the notification map showing the location of the 2 in favor. Here's the aerial view of the property. To the north are apartments. The east, west, and south are commercial businesses. The current zoning is local retail district. The northern property is zoned family apartment. The east is zoned interstate highway commercial. The south and west are zoned local retail. The future land use map designates this as commercial property. Here are some photos of the property and its surroundings. This request conforms to the principles of the future land use map and is in conformance with the zoning ordinance. The proposed zone change is compatible with the surrounding area and will not change the character of the existing development. Located south of 114th, designated as a minor arterial street by the 2018 Master Thoroughfare Plan, the subject property is a vacant lot which is conducive to self-storage facilities. Staff recommends approval of this request, and I can take any questions at this time.
Any questions for staff? Thank you.
Somebody's watching the game.
What's the score?
I don't know who it is.
Okay, we'll open the public hearing. Is the applicant here? For 17th, Mr. Gentry? Any additional comment?
Tyler Gentry with 17 Services located at 1500 Broadway, Suite 203, here to answer any questions.
Questions?
Gentry, question. You know really the intent of what it's for?
Now, we are doing this in preparation of the transition to UDC. Obviously, this would transition to neighborhood commercial if left in C2. The intent is to transition to HC to allow for a retail warehouse type operation. They sell construction materials and supplies.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We go back to site plan?
While they're doing that.
I mean, the overview.
Yeah, the aerial.
Any other questions for the applicant while she's pulling that up?
Yeah.
Jordan,
No, I just want to see that.
so that's down by the old,
Right, and we've got that Rayburn Reynolds, because that's the
Yeah.
little Cooper Drive-In, and we just did that Rayburn Reynolds not too long ago that's already built. It would be sandwiched in between.
yeah.
Is Rayburn's to the east of this, Tyler?
Yes, I believe that's the name of that company.
Okay.
Any other questions? No? All right,
Thanks, Tyler.
Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this zone case? Does anyone to speak in favor? Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Michael Poster, 3110 Frankfurt Avenue. So I own this property. I also own the property across the street from it. That'll be a future affordable storage. So I've talked to the neighbors, AKA the Wilkersons own everything across the street. I explained to them exactly what was doing. I'm not the developer of this one, but nobody's against it. Everybody's like, okay, that's cool. We're all for it. So just wanted to say that.
Any questions for Mr. Poster? We're good? Okay, thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And we'll need a motion.
Motion to approve zone case 3058 zone case 3351-B.
Second.
Second, Brandon. Any discussion? You good? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.
I saw the same applicant name.
All right, 5.7.
This is zone case 3490. The applicant is Hugo Reed and Associates for Red Canyon Development, requesting a zone change from transition district to transition specific use for an athletic field. The subject property is located south of 146th Street and west of Quaker Avenue. We sent out 7 letters, receiving none back. Here's an aerial view of the property. To the west is the county line. Vacant land surrounds the subject property. The current zoning is transitional. Transitional districts surround the subject property. The eastern transition district has a specific use for the Red Feather Golf Course. This zone change is being developed in conjunction with that project. Here are some photos of the property and its surrounding. This request conforms to the principles of the future land use map and is in conformance with the zoning ordinance. The proposed zone change is compatible with the surrounding area and will not change the character of the existing development. This property is located south of 146th Street, designated as a principal arterial street by the 2018 Master Thoroughfare Plan. This is vacant land, which is conducive to expanding the golf course and development. Staff recommends approval of this request, and I can take any questions at this time.
Okay, any questions for staff? Okay, thank you. And we'll open the public hearing. Is the applicant here? Yes, sir, Mr. Holman.
Good evening. I'm Terry Holman with Hugo Reed and Associates. We're at 1601 Avenue N. There was a graphic that I think we had provided that I'm not seeing here that might help tell our story a little bit better. Whoops, I went the wrong way. Apologize. Make sure I just didn't miss it myself. Yeah, sure enough. Okay. This, as was pointed out, this is an extension of our Red Feather Golf Course. We were here in spring of 2022, and we received T-specific use zoning. The way the current code is written, we can do a specific use in any district for an athletic field, commercial park, those types of things. And this Red Feather Golf Course sort of fit in that pigeonhole, so to speak. So we got the 133-acre golf course zoned as T-specific use about a year ago. As most of you are probably aware, the golf course has been under construction and really coming along well. We've now decided that as you know, the site plans have changed a little bit. We're going to extend this southwest corner over a little bit. It's another 3 acres or so. This is right at the front. This is why I wanted the graphic. This is right at the front door to our Red Feather residential segment, and there will be some casitas located here that will be part of the golf course property, part of the golf course operations. And it's just, again, auxiliary uses for the golf course. Long story short, we had T-specific use for the golf course. We want to tack on this additional 3 acres. We appreciate your support for that. Be happy to answer questions.
So do you enter it through the residential? How do you get to the clubhouse or whatever? Off of Quaker or Woodrow?
No, this is well off of Quaker and well off of Woodrow Road. This is, if you can envision where the high school property is, it's bordered on the north by what will be 155th Street. That's a collector street. And the entry to the clubhouse will be, through a private sort of gated area in the residential area, and then you go into the golf course itself. This is a private club, private golf course.
Gotcha. I won't be a member.
It's above my pay grade, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there any opposition to this zone case? Anyone here speak in favor? Okay. We will close the public hearing. And need a motion?
For matters of discussion, make the motion to approve zone case 3490.
Second.
Second. Bob? Brandon? Any questions? Nope.
Looks good.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. 5.8, set for 17 services again.
This is zone case 3058-E. The applicant is 17 Services LLC for Shag Holding LLC. The purpose is to rezone from R1 specific use for residential estates to C3. 10 letters were sent out and we received 1 back in favor. The property is located north of 50th Street and east of Upland Avenue. Here is a notification map showing the 1 in favor. Here is an aerial view of the property showing the property surrounded by vacant land. The current zoning map shows the property to the north, east, and south, single-family specific use, and to the west, transitional. The future land use map designates this area for commercial and low-density residential uses. Here's a view of the subject's property, as well as views to the west, south, and north. The future land use map designates this area for commercial and low-density residential uses. The proposed zone change to C3 would not be in conformance with a portion of the future land use plan, but would be in conformance with the suggested commercial designation indicated at the intersection of 2 arterial streets within the future land use plan and comprehensive plan principles. The proposed zone change is in conformance with the zoning ordinance. The property is located on the corner of 2 principal arterial streets. The proposed zone change is compatible with the surrounding area and will not change the character of the existing development. The subject's property is located on the corner of 2 principal arterial streets and would provide a buffer from those streets to future residential development in the area. The location is along 50th Street and Upland Avenue, which are designated as principal arterials by the Master Thoroughfare Plan 2018. And staff recommends approval of this request, and I can take any questions at this time.
Okay, any questions? All right, thank you. We'll open the public hearing. Is the applicant here? Tyler, once again.
Tyler Gentry, 17 Services, 1500 Broadway, Suite 203.
Any questions for the applicant?
Any ideas in mind?
The end user is unknown at this time. We just know that a house isn't a good fit at 50th and Upland.
Yep, big corner.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else for the applicant? Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this zone case? Anyone here to speak in favor? Not seeing any. We'll close the public hearing.
Zone case number 3058-E.
Second, Avi. Discussion, questions? Fits well within the commercial node.
Yep. Busy spot.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? .9.
This is zone case 3205A. The applicant is 17 Services LLC for Paradise Business Park. LLC, the applicant requests for a zone change from Interstate Highway Commercial District, IHC, to Local Retail District, C2. This property is located west of Frankfurt Avenue and south of 116th Street. We sent out 19 notifications and have not received any in return. Here's an aerial view of the subject property. The subject property is surrounded by single-family residences zoned Transition District T to the north, with additional residential properties zoned Transitional Additional IHC to the south and west, and vacant land zoned Local Retail District C2 to the east. The future land use map designates this area for low-density residential land uses. Here are photos of the subject property and the surrounding area. The future land use map designates this area for low-density residential land uses. While the proposed zone change to C2 is not consistent with this designation, it is appropriate in this location and consistent with the comprehensive plan principles. C2 zoning is appropriate along a thoroughfare and is a more restrictive zoning district than the existing IHC zoning. The proposed zone change is in conformance with the zoning ordinance and is appropriate for the intended location. Additionally, it harmonizes with the surrounding area and will not change the character of the existing development. The location is generally located west of Frankfurt Avenue, which is designated as a minor arterial, and south of 116th Street, which is designated as a local street. Arterial streets are continuous routes whose function is to serve high-volume needs of local traffic and regional traffic. Local streets typically provide access to smaller destination-oriented areas such as neighborhoods, subdivisions, or local business districts. Staff recommends approval of this request, and we can take any questions at this time.
Questions for staff?
So when a notification boundary hits a property, if it doesn't encompass the whole property, they still get notified? Like all these folks on the next street, they were all notified?
Yes, any property that 200-foot hits, whether it's inside the city or outside city limits, receives the notification.
Okay.
Can you pull that up real quick, just a visual of notification? Go back one, forward one. Nope.
Oh, it's, oh, the aerial, I'm sorry.
Does that help you at all, or I don't know?
That they were notified. I mean, I didn't know if the entire property had to be encompassed in that boundary or not, but. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? Thank you. All right, we'll open the public hearing. Is the applicant here?
Hi, I am Kaylee Hernandez, and I'm here with 17 Services, located at 1500 Broadway Street, Suite 203, and I'm here if you have any questions.
So what's the intent here with C2?
The client is not wanting to use that specific space for interstate commercial. They are hoping to go more garden offices.
More garden offices?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm just asking, but why did you not ask for a garden office?
Well, they're trying to do a mixed use of garden offices, and they were considering one shopping center. So we need it to align with C2 for the UDC to take effect.
So I'm sorry. So you say you're going to use it for garden office?
From my understanding, we've only been touching the project slightly. They're wanting to do mostly garden offices and maybe one shopping center on the east portion of the property. Instead of the IHC.
Okay.
I believe that the C2 local retail district is like more appropriate when it's abutting to, I believe some of that is residential. To the north.
It's a down zone. That's one.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is a down zone.
But your point is, why not just go ahead and ask for garden office in its entirety rather than?
Yeah, but
You know,
she's saying she wants to do C2 up along Frankfurt where it,
Yeah.
C2 becomes more flexible for the development in the UDC.
okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Good? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is anyone here to speak in opposition of this zone case? Yes, ma'am.
Lisa Ramby, 5813 116th. That's right in my alley. You're telling me someone's going to buy that long, skinny strip to get to a big section? No, they're going to be coming right down my street. We've lived there 31 years, and it's been so nice and quiet. And now we don't even have curbs. I don't worry about my dog. I don't worry about my grandkids. And you know, not everybody's going to drive down that skinny thing. They're going to be coming down my street to go around, to come up that back way. They're not going to just use that skinny little road going in and out. That's only half an acre wide. Half an acre. And they're going to have to buy 4.5 of those just to get to the big 1 acres. And there's only like 3.5 of those. So I just don't understand how they can put commercial in it. There's just not enough room to put, for an acre deep, to put a commercial and parking and people turning around and getting in and out. So that's just, I say no. And yes, we got our letters. We didn't turn them in. Several of the people have been out of town, but we've talked about it on the block and nobody's happy about it. The only thing that would be good, they'd clean it up because it's the biggest mess you've ever seen. The weeds are over my head. But that would be the only plus. Only plus. We don't want the traffic, and I know there's going to be traffic coming in. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you pull the aerial back up? Or is that showing that boundary line?
So quick question, maybe for staff, but on the west side on Homestead, is that a house there with the blue dot? I guess that's a pool.
On the back.
Yes.
So on the north side of that house, is that a road? Or dirt road? I mean, is that an alley?
It is
It's an alley? It's an alley?
It is a road, but I do not think that it's paved.
It looks like an alley. It's a
an alley.
20-foot wide dedicated right-of-way, which is the typical width for an alley. And it is behind those homes facing 116th.
Okay, so there's an alley that separates the two properties. It runs east-west.
There is an alley running east to west on the north side of the subject property, south
So-
side of the residential homes facing 116th.
So regardless of what goes there in the future, he will have to have a fence.
Yes.
There's not, I guess what I'm addressing, they're not going to be able to access that property through the neighborhood.
Through Homestead?
There is Homestead. That's what I was looking at. Homestead is on the west side of the
But that's an
residential
alley.
home.
Yeah.
And so depending on if the city requires 117th to come through, potentially, but I don't know if that will be required.
I don't think that can't access.
So
that.
the house on Homestead, can you tell me what it's zoned right now? If that other section was IC, is it IC2?
If I may, we've been doing a schematic site plan, and on our schematic site plan, we have no intention of using that alleyway as a means of access. The property will be accessed off of, is that? Frankfurt, yes. So the little strip is actually wide enough to allow a 20-foot buffer yard and a fire lane access to the entire development. So as of right now, my concentration is on the east portion. It will not be using an alleyway as a means of access.
So means of access, 25-foot fire lane.
The fence?
No, my question was, Kristen, the house on the back on the Homestead where the pool is?
Yep.
What is it zoned?
Transition.
So I'd just like to bring some comfort and clarification. The alleyway is not the means of access to this property.
Yeah, and I believe you were here to speak in opposition as well. Please come forward.
Well, I just have questions.
Come on.
I'm not,
If you don't mind, state your name and address.
my name's Patricia Castro. I live at 5918 117th Street. On this map, there is not a 117th at my house right now. I mow all of that. When I moved there, the address also was wrong, I was told. I've been to the city many times. I did call and talk to someone Tuesday, I believe. They said that this 117th Street that is on this map right here will probably be an access to that shopping center, either at the first little peak or the second, that it was possibly supposed to be a cul-de-sac. So my main concern is, if they put this shopping center in, number one, is there going to be a fence? What size of fence? And I was told it was retail property. My house is right there. I'm the only house left on that block. Didn't know what we were zoned as, if my zone is just residential or potential commercial, because I don't want to be right by a shopping center, and then my kids are in the front yard a lot, and then if that 117th is going to go through to go in that shopping center, they're going to have to go in through Hayes Estates. So not only Frankfurt would be affected, like she was saying, that only entrance would be Frankfurt Avenue, like where Paul's Parts is right there. So let's say if there was an emergency or a fire or an accident with a person, there's only going to be one exit. That makes no sense if there were so many cars in there. That would be another one of my concerns. So really my concern right now is making sure I have to exit our garage on Homestead. So my house sets, I come out of my garage onto Homestead. So if that's going to be entrance on 117th and then all that traffic in front of our house, that concerns me as well. It is an estate, so I didn't know. My question was, how many entrances? Is it where the white is on the back side? That's the alley for us. Homestead, like I said, 117th is not, there's not a sign there or anything like that, but there were people out there surveying. So my concern was, is there going to be a cul-de-sac that would go in front of our house? That would affect.
Some more concern. Go ahead.
I can answer that to a degree.
Okay.
There is a street dedication deed on our map for 60 feet on the east side of Homestead Avenue, south of your home. That is eventually going to be 117th Street. It has the whole 60-foot street dedication for a portion of it, and then it goes down to just the southern half, with half of that cul-de-sac dedicated. So eventually, it could become a dedicated public right-of-way.
All the way out to Frankfurt?
No.
Okay.
It terminates in a cul-de-sac.
All right. So, yes, to the cul-de-sac. Can you speak to, so they are required to have a fence. I
Yes.
believe it's masonry, wood,
Yes.
6 foot tall.
Yes.
Much like what you see in your backyards. That's going to be on the alley side, bordering the homes to the north. It'll be on the west side, bordering yours. Well, if it's going to be the perimeter in its entirety, will it not? Or is it the south
Yeah.
side won't?
No, because it's adjacent to the portion that's currently Interstate Highway Commercial that is not being rezoned. No, it won't be required there.
Okay.
It'll be required adjacent to everything that's zone transition, as well as the buffer yard under the Unified Development Code.
So which,
Can y'all move it back
there
to
it
where the
is.
current zone?
Yeah, okay, that's what she was
Yeah.
talking about. Can you pull it back to the, yeah, where it shows the IHC?
Yeah, the current zone.
There's the cul-de-sac right there. That shows the
Yeah.
south, so that's what you were explaining, right?
Right, yes, sir.
So they just wouldn't have to be fenced right against the park where Paul's Parks and is. Okay.
Those are my concerns.
Kristen, can you explain interstate highway for some of us?
Yeah, Interstate highway commercial actually allows many more uses than the requested C2 zoning. Interstate highway commercial allows everything from your typical retail sales, grocery store, gym, restaurant, but it includes uses like nightclub, bar, lounge, more intense automotive uses that are not allowed in C2, automotive body shops, things of that nature.
Thank you, Kristen.
Mm-hmm.
So, go ahead.
I see the concern just hearing the word C2. I hear the concern, but as of right now, it's with the interstate highway. It could be pretty bad as of right now. What I'm hearing from a nightclub, bar, and all that.
No, I agree.
But I think we addressed the traffic issue as well. I mean, it fronts Frankfurt. They're not going to be entering on the back piece of the property. There's not a means.
Could there eventually, so there could be a street on 117th? Could they have access off of that
Because
cul-de-sac?
there's her 700.
There could be, yes, because there is a current street dedication deed for that portion of 117th.
Yeah, that would be my concern. I think it's interesting that it is IHC now, so.
Mhm.
But yeah, this one's kind of weird. I don't know.
It's an odd piece of land. I mean, it's, as of right now, I think it's, no offense, I think it's junkyard, maybe, I think. So it could go from bad to worse, or it could go the other way to a C2.
I'll get to it. Yeah, so is there anyone else here to speak in opposition? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Or is there anyone here to speak in favor? Did I already ask that? Okay, now we'll close the public
Okay,
hearing.
for matter discussion, motion to approve zone case 3205A. Now we can get back to going to
Yes.
discussions. Big thanks.
We need a second.
Second.
Go ahead. Brandon, second.
Brandon, second. Thanks.
No, and I agree. I think it's kind of a wild one. I think it would be totally different if it wasn't going from IHC down to C, being down zoning, and I understand the residents' concerns, but what could happen there right now without anything, I think would be a lot more detrimental. You know, it's kind of unfortunate the way it works, but I see it kind of as a plus now, as you put it, to being something that could be a positive instead of going worse.
Can you turn your mic on, Susan, please?
So let's clarify, just so everybody's on the same page. There was some concern that we were changing this to commercial. It's already commercial.
Right.
So what we're doing is we are down zoning it, meaning we are restricting more by changing it to C2, saying, here are the things that would not be allowed, that are already allowed there, which would be bars and so on. So, and also to clarify, anything that gets built there would have to have a 6-foot fence, screening fence, next to the neighbors, so the neighbors don't be living in a parking lot. So it's actually an improvement. It probably doesn't feel. You have to ask the chair.
We already closed the public hearing, ma'am, I'm sorry. If you have any questions, though, you can reach out to staff. They can.
So just call the number again on here. Can I set an appointment with who?
The planning and zoning department.
Planning and zoning?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. I'm sorry. Was there anybody else that had any other discussion or comments?
Can we restrict access on 117th Street?
No, I don't think we can. I don't think we can.
Restrict access?
Yeah.
I mean, well, you can put conditions on it if you feel like it safeguards the neighborhood. That's a.
Can we go so far as to say that the access has to come from Frankfurt?
I'm not sure because I don't know what the engineering department's requirements would be, what's going to be on the property.
and fire department.
Yeah, there's a lot to consider that with that. It may render it useless practically.
So you say conditions, like putting a condition in there saying that you must restrict access off 117th to protect the neighborhood just from any
Yeah,
back door?
that's what I was thinking, just because future land use plan shows it as residential low density. It's a neighborhood if you look at it from the aerial. There's several homes.
It is a really odd piece of land, and it's unfortunate that it butts right up against neighborhoods, and I would really encourage the owner to think about, actually making it garden office, which is more restrictive. You can't put a shopping center in there, but I think a garden office proposal would be a lot more amenable to the neighbors than having a shopping center.
Yeah, it looks to me it'd be kind of hard to put a shopping center in there anyway.
I can't imagine people driving out there to go to a shopping center. But I could see people putting a garden. Is there, I sure would like to see this tabled and the owner, explore garden office change.
Well, my fear of that is he keeps it IHC.
Yeah.
Like you said,
Yeah,
this
it
is a
keeps it
good, this is an
IHC.
opportunity to restrict.
I think it would be one of those ones that downzoning it now to where they're wanting is a better safeguard now, and if they want to change it to garden offices, you
Well,
could.
if we downzoned it to C2, there's nothing that says they have to put a shopping center there. They can
No.
put garden offices there.
Right.
And I think that would be preferable and more, probably, I just can't imagine it would be a good place to put a shopping center.
Okay. Anybody else? Before we call the question? Any conditions? Anybody we need to change the motion? Nope. Okay. All right, all in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Thank you, Brandon. All in favor? And all opposed? Okay, 5.10 for Beedenbow.
This is zone case 3489. The applicant is Beatonbow Homes LLC. The applicant requests for a zone change from transition district to two-family district, R2. This property is located south of 146th Street and west of Frankfurt Avenue. We sent out 39 notifications and have received 0 in favor and 3 in opposition. 1 letter in opposition was due to concern about the potential negative impact on the property values in the area. Here is a mail-out notification map. And here is an aerial view of the subject property. The property is surrounded by Transition District T to the north, south, and west, with single-family residences to the east outside of city limits. The future land use map designates this area for low-density residential land uses with commercial uses at the intersection of Frankfurt Avenue and 146th Street. Here are photos of the subject property and the surrounding area. The future land use map designates this area for low-density residential land uses with the commercial uses at the intersection of Frankfurt Avenue and 146th Street. Although the proposed zone change to R2 is not consistent with this designation, medium-density residential land use would be appropriate in this location and would conform to the principles of the 2040 Comprehensive Plan. The proposed zone change is in conformance with the zoning ordinance and is appropriate for the intended location. Additionally, it harmonizes with the surrounding area and will not change the character of the existing development. This property is located south of 146th Street, which is designated as a principal arterial, and west of Frankfurt Avenue, which is designated as a minor arterial. Arterials are continuous routes whose function is to serve high-volume needs of local traffic and regional traffic. Staff recommends approval of this request, and we can take any questions at this time.
Microphone.
Could you go back to the opposition map for just a second? So really, that's Frankfurt dividing it between there, so it's on. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, thank you. All right, we'll open the public hearing. Is the applicant? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Chair and Commission. My name is Wes Everett. I'm representing Beaton Bow Homes. We are at 6305 82nd Street. This zone case is being brought to you. It is one of our newest developments, going to be called Homestead at Frankfurt. It'll be close to 1,200 homes, a mix of our core product that a lot of y'all have seen before in our areas and a few in our cottage areas. There will be some green space and park area through this community, and we're looking just to blend through the community that's already there and add on. I'm here for any questions.
Very good. Any questions, Mr. Everett? Okay, thank you. All right, is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this zone case? Yes, ma'am. If you'll please step forward and state your name and address. That sounded like...
Frances McCormick, address 5637 County Road 7540. I'm one of the opposing votes. I am concerned about the value of our homes, depending on how they build this. I'm concerned as to where they're going to have the entrance. Are they planning to have that open out into County Road 7540, or will it be down closer to 146th Street? I fear that duplexes will increase the traffic. There's already a great deal of traffic on Frankfurt, and that duplex will just bring in more people. You know, Windsor Park, Sundance, and Highland Oaks are all out there, and none of those areas have duplexes. I just don't feel like duplexes would be appropriate in this area.
Okay, as far as speaking to traffic, city engineering's looked at it. It's Frankfurt's more than capable of handling it, along with what's to the north of it. It's Frankfurt and
146th.
46th.
Mm-hmm. Just north of that would be Sundance Edition.
So city engineering reviewed and approved it. As far as entrance locations, have y'all gotten that far yet? I mean, I imagine you're going to have several along both north and east.
We have, yes. Our main entrance that'll have one sign will be just really in the middle of that community plat, entering or exiting onto Frankfurt. Entering and exiting onto Frankfurt. So we'll have one more on 146, but the main entrance will be there.
But where on Frankfurt?
In the middle of the community.
In the middle of your
yes,
community?
Ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, not across from County Road 7540?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so there'll be fences along there for the homes?
The homes fences, yes, ma'am.
Okay, are you planning?
Would y'all
to have-
mind stepping
where
to
will
the
duplexes
microphone?
be?
Sure.
Ma'am?
They
Would
would
you
like
mind
to
stepping to the
speak
microphone? I don't mind y'all
Okay,
exchanging.
where would the duplexes be in your addition?
Currently, because our plans sometimes change, if we do have duplexes, they're going to be on 146th Street.
Okay.
Everything else is going to be single-family residences. Even the cottages, which is a majority of the smaller homes, is what might be considered a duplex in some people's vision, is really just still a single-family community home, around 1,000 to 1,200 square feet.
Ooh, that's little. I oppose that also.
So Wes, on, you're seeking R2, so you can do everything under R2? Is that?
Yes, sir.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, sir.
So you can do, so you're not just doing it, coming to get R1, just so you do single family. You want to be able to do garden home, duplex, single family, and that's why you're doing the R2 to catch it all.
Yes, and the square footage on the cottage homes, we are trying to catch that on that, under that as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
I forgot where we were. Opposition? Is there anyone else here to speak in opposition? Yes, sir.
I'm J.W. Michaels, and I live at 5752 150th Street, just off of Frankfurt. So his construction's taking place right across from my house. And when I first saw duplexes, we're in Southwest Gardens out there, manufactured homes, all of them. Real quiet community, very peaceful, minimal criminal behavior out there. And so our concern was that with a lot of duplexes just across the street, crime rate would go up, we'd have some problems. His idea sounds pretty good, actually.
Yeah. Some
Parks and whatnot, so that was all. And his entrance is going to be right in front of my house, I'm afraid.
Is there anyone else here to speak in opposition? Is there anyone here to speak in favor? Okay, not seeing anyone, close the public hearing.
Move to approve zone case 3489.
Second.
James, and
Can we see the notification?
the notification boundary?
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So all of those homes to the east, I have that right? That was all empty land at one point, and it became a development. Just like this is empty land and it becomes a development. So I just want to clarify that you know, this is I think a prime place to put a neighborhood, and that's what we're talking about. Even though he's asking for a zone R2, which allows for duplexes, it doesn't mean he is going to make all of these things duplexes. It means that he can make some of them duplexes if he wants to. He could make all of them duplexes if he wanted to, but I just want to clarify that just because it's a broader zone range that allows for more things. And so I think it's actually a very appropriate place to ask for something like an R2. It seems like an appropriate place to build another neighborhood.
Thank you, Susan. Any other comments, discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, that will go to City Council. 5.11 was pulled. Correct? Did I get that right? Yes. 5.12.
This is zone case 2538 KK. The applicant is Delta Land Surveying for Red Yucca 806 Investments, LLC. The request is for a zone change from single-family district R1 to two-family district R2. This property is in District 6 and is located north of 25th Street and west of Urbana Place. We sent out 25 notifications and have received 0 in favor and 0 in opposition. Here is an aerial view of the subject property. The property is adjacent to low-density residential land uses zoned R1 to the north, south, east, with vacant land to the west. The future land use map designates this area for low-density residential land uses. The proposed zone change is compatible with this designation. Here are photos of the subject property and the surrounding area. The future land use map designates this area for low-density residential land uses. The proposed zone change is compatible with this designation. The property is located north of 25th Street, which is designated as a local street, and west of Urbano Place, which is designated as a collector by the Master Thoroughfare Plan. 2018, local streets provide access to smaller destination-oriented areas such as neighborhoods, subdivisions, or local business districts. Collectors provide access and movement within residential, commercial, and industrial areas. Staff recommends approval of this request, and we can take any questions at this time.
Okay, any questions for staff? Thank you. We'll open the public hearing. Is the applicant here? Would like to add any additional comments? Yes, sir.
Hello, I'm Robert Kennedy with Delta Land Serving, 1310 Jarvis Street. I believe they're wanting to put duplexes.
Can you pull up the aerial again? Just want to look at that. Any questions for the applicant?
Sure.
Okay. Nothing else to add to that? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this zone case? Anyone here to speak in favor? Okay, not seeing any, we'll close the public hearing. And we'll need a motion.
Motion to approve zone case 2538-KK.
Second.
Second, Mr. Bell. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Push it again, Avi. Or push the left button. No, right. His mic's dead. Okay. Or it's blinking green. Any questions or comments?
Only question, concern I got is I'm not against going to R2, but when you're looking at that, you're taking 3 lots from the 1 block, making them a duplex. The future land use for that whole area is single family. And it concerns me to taking that one part and doing it, because if we do that there, then are we putting the domino to put all that other area into it? That's my biggest concern with it.
Can we go to street view on that? The ones that were in the
Presentation.
They were in the.
Oh, okay.
Not Google Street.
Not Google Street View.
You can, but
That's, you think we'll start doing that?
yeah, those.
Okay.
That's not. Is that it?
Okay. We have a motion, we have a second. Any other concern, comment? Single
Looks like
family?
across the street is a row of pines along through there, so, yeah.
Lake, water fountain?
Okay.
Lakefront. Yes, Jordan, I think that should be the west view.
So I think just looking at it with Avi, the south view should be a different view, but south view should be to that, I don't want to call it junk, but.
That's south, that's north.
The lake is to the south. It's on the south side of 26th Street.
Yeah, further down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. It's kind of
Okay.
skipping.
Anything else?
R2.
Her question was, future land use is single family.
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
On hands?
Yes.
All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, raise your hand.
Oh,
4-4. 4-4.
so, yeah, we've not had this before with this commission because we usually don't have an even number. But a tie vote does not pass because to vote or to approve something, you have to have a majority vote, which would have been at least 5 of y'all.
Okay.
So-
Okay. All right. That was 512. So that did not pass. So we will move on to 513. Before you start, do you understand what she just said? The applicant? So because it was even, it doesn't pass, it doesn't, so it's not, it goes to city council that way. Okay. I just wanted to make sure he understood what we were doing. Sorry, Ashley, go ahead.
This is zone case 3032B. The applicant is DLC Designs LLC for Daniel Aaron Homes of West Texas LLC, Drylands Homes LLC, and K. Limmer Real Estate LLC, requesting a zone change from single-family district R1 specific use for townhomes to R1 specific use for garden homes. We've sent out 52 notifications, receiving 3 in favor. The properties are located north of Erskine Street and east of Milwaukee Avenue. Here's the notification map. Here's an aerial view of the properties. Lots 64, 65, 66, and 67 are surrounded by residential homes zoned R1 specific use for garden homes. Lots 50, 51, and 52 are surrounded by residential homes to the north and east, zoned R1 specific use for garden homes. And to the west is developed with a retirement home zone general retail district C3 and vacant land zone to two-family district R2 and local retail district C2 to the south. The current zoning is single-family specific use. Here are photos of lots 64 through 67 and photos of lots 50 and 50 through 52. The proposed zoning request is in conformance with the zoning ordinance and is appropriate for this area. The proposed specific use is compatible with the surrounding area. Lots 67 and 66 are currently not capable of townhome development as the lots are not connected. The additional lots are surrounded by other garden homes, making it compatible with their neighborhood. The proposed rezoning location will be along Erskine Street, Windsor Court, and Amesbury Court. Erskine Street is designated as a principal arterial. Windsor Court and Amesbury Court are designated as private roads in the gated community of Wilshire Estates. Staff recommends approval, and I can take any questions.
Questions for staff?
So basically, this is coming back, looks like in 2018, they had it zoned for garden homes, be able to garden homes, and they changed it to townhomes, and now they're wanting to go back to garden homes, basically, is this.
I'm going to go back to garden homes.
It's a pretty wild layout.
Yeah, that is a wild
It's
layout.
just, never seen that before.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
Thank you.
Okay. We'll open the public hearing. Is the applicant here? Like to make any additional comments? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Amanda King with DLC Designs, 1318 North King. And yes, you nailed it right on the head. It was asked for the townhome zoning. All we can assume is that the previous owners of the lots had intended to replat so that townhomes could be built. That didn't happen. So with the current zoning, you cannot build townhomes on these lots without replatting them. So the new owners just want to take it back to what the rest of the residential development is. Thank you.
Any questions for the applicant? Okay, thanks. All right, is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this zone request? Anyone here to speak in favor? Not seeing any. Then we will close the public hearing. We'll need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second, Terry. Brandon?
Thank goodness for the easy ones.
Yeah.
And it's at the end.
Discussion, comments? All good? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay, this next one, Mr. Wheatley, I believe you were going to recuse. 5.14.
Okay. Good evening. This is Zone Case 3175-G. The applicant is SK Architecture Group for 806 Land Group, and the request is for a zone change from Restricted Local Retail District C2A and Reduced Setback Single Family District R1A to High Density Apartment District A2. We've sent 30 notifications, and we have received back 1 in favor and 10 in opposition. One of those was outside of the notification boundary. Here's the notification map. The letters in opposition were concerned about traffic and noise and desired the commercial uses over the apartment uses. Here's the aerial map. There are homes to the northwest and south and a police department substation to the east. This is zoning map. Properties to the south and west are zoned single-family district R1 with reduced setback, single-family district R1A to the north, and high-density apartment district A2 with a specific use for a police station to the east. Here, the future land use map designates this property for low-density residential land uses. And here's those photos right there of the subject and surrounding properties. The future land use map designates this area for low-density residential land uses, and while this request does not conform to this designation, it would be appropriate next to adjacent land uses and along a major thoroughfare. Therefore, this request is in moderate conformance with the comprehensive plan principles. The proposed zone change is in conformance with the zoning ordinance, and the property is located along a major thoroughfare and is appropriate adjacent to nearby residential uses. The proposed zone changes compatible with the surrounding area would not change the character of the existing development, and the location is along Erskine Street, which is designated as a principal arterial by the Master Thoroughfare Plan. Staff recommends approval of this request, and I can take any questions at this time.
Questions for staff? Wait to hear the applicant. Okay, thank you. We'll open the public hearing. Is the applicant here? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Gabriel Sanchez. I'm with SK Architecture Group, 6302 70th Street. We are the applicant for this project. The idea for this apartment design intent is these apartment complexes is a breathable open plan, so it's not going to be super cramped. They're going to be high-end boutique style apartments, and we read the letters with the developer. We took each letter seriously, and we were also looking into a different line of sight options to address those concerns. But we believe the original design intent of the project already addressed most of those, but so we're re-looking at everything to make sure that everything's addressed, and we're eager to answer any questions or concerns that y'all or any residents might have.
When you reference line of sight, are you talking about the height of the building?
Yeah, yes, sir. To the north and to the north, the properties to the north of the
back up to the residential.
Yes, sir.
Neighborhood. So what's the setback of the building off of that? Is it 43 feet?
So we are going off the UDC currently, so it'd be 20 foot, but we plan on having parking back there with the buffer yard. So the actual building, as it stands, is going to be 60 foot from the north property line, and then we plan on having a 6 foot buffer yard right off the north property line.
So you have your fence, you have your buffer yard, then
Yes,
you
sir.
have parking, and then you have the structure?
Yes, sir. And currently, we're looking at 3 stories. So the bottom, the third story will be at about a 24 foot height, deck height. So 30 foot up in the air, average person.
Okay.
And we also have a line of sight diagram. We kind of put it together after reading the letters. We have it on USB. I also have a printout I could show y'all.
Now, any other questions for the applicant? Okay.
What's a line of sight diagram?
Basically, we just kind of, to scale, we show where the building is going to be at. So there's a balcony facing to the north. We show basically how the angle of that person, like a 6 foot tall person on that 24 foot tall deck, can see and how far they can see. And and we take into consideration alleyway fences on the north properties as well as our property. And at the time, we're kind of considering tree fences, or tree fences, so like basically planting trees along that north property to help those homeowners feel more comfortable with this proposal.
You add something to it, because even though, take out trees, in years from now, let's say there are no trees, then you said 60 foot from your property line, well, from theirs, you still have a 20-foot alley and another fence. So was that right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, 60 foot is where the fence will hit, and then 20 foot will be the north property fence.
Okay. That's pretty far. That's pretty good. That's a good distance. Anyway, okay. Is that all you had, Brandon? Anybody else? Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition for this zone case? Yes, sir. Please come forward. State your name and address.
My name is Andres Yepes, and can we see the aerial view? I own the property west to it. And so I own this property here, and I bought this property about 5 years ago in hope to live there, a quiet life, and be close to the hospital where I take care of my patients. And during the past 5 years, I've been seeing a tremendous change there. All this line that you can see here has been developed, and I have, when I moved into my property, I tried to get trash. I was not annexed to the city, so I couldn't get trash services. I don't get water services. I don't get any service. As a matter of fact, my internet broke a while back, and the only thing I can get is satellite. So I live there, but the only thing that I get from the city is a bill for taxes. So, and trash. So ever since they developed this, all I do is pick up trash and pay people to pick up trash in this area. So that's a big concern for me. My kids that used to be able to run around this and play with the horses and my animals now can't do it, because it's very common to find people wandering around, jumping my fence. I have a full fence, but the developers for this group were never asked to actually build a fence. So all I have is each house independent fence, and people abandon their trash, mattresses, and that became my front yard. It's really inconvenient to live there at this moment. So adding an extra amount of people living there is going to create a tremendous distress for me. So as of right now, I live, pay taxes without representation. I hope this ends here. And this is the one thing that I can get from the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in opposition? Yes, please come forward.
Hi, I'm Lisa Muse. My residence is at 972 Curry Road 16 in Clovis, New Mexico. I have, I'm speaking on behalf of two addresses at 5905 Fordham and 5909 that will be right along the fence line of the new proposed property, the apartments, high-density apartments that they're wanting to do. My husband and I just recently purchased these two homes for our daughters. One just recently got married. That's my son-in-law. And they live in one, and I have another daughter who attends LCU and lives in the other with roommates. My biggest concern is for, one of the reasons we bought the place is because we felt like it was going to be secure. There's the police station right there. It was fenced off. We were told that it was going to be just a local retail shopping strip. And this is, they're going to be able to see directly into the backyards of my girls. And I feel like that's an invasion of privacy, and there's no way around that if you're going up. It's not a large area of land, and so there isn't really an option but to go up. And I've talked to the residents in that neighborhood, and they're all single families with some with kids, some retired. Everybody's been opposed that I've talked to. And so security, privacy, and the other concern is decreasing our property values should we decide to sell. I think at this point our
kids would like to stay there and raise their families, but if there's going to be a lot of traffic and a lot of noise and a lot of riffraff from having apartment complexes right there, there are no other apartment complexes in that area, so I don't understand why would they'd want to put one right there. And it is, if we had known this ahead of time, because we bought these in May, we would not have probably purchased in this location, because I do feel like it will decrease the value and it is a huge privacy. There's no way you can not just look in the backyard. I just feel like that's a main concern, security for my girls. So that's all I have. Thank you for letting me speak. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit out of my arena here.
Just one last thing. I didn't cast my vote, so I'd like to be the 12th opposing because I didn't get to cast it before.
Is there anyone else here to speak on? Yes. Go ahead, yes, sir.
So my name is Jess Brockman. I live at 5909 Fordham Street. I rent it from my mother-in-law. Me and my wife that just got married in April moved into this home, and we agreed to move into this home because of the location of it. It is a double cul-de-sac. It is a very small, very quiet neighborhood. Everyone in the neighborhood is a single family. My next door neighbor next to me is a young guy that's trying to start a family. The people on the other side of me have two little girls. They're an extreme opposition to it. He's actually in a band, so he travels a lot. His wife and daughters are left there all the time. People across the street, we have doctors, we have, retiree people, we have all kinds of stuff going on in the neighborhood, but it's very quiet, it's very peaceful. I agree that I appreciate their, trying to help with, the tree fences and the boundary off of that. But the matter of fact is we only have a 6-foot tall fence that's a wood fence, and our yards are very open. We don't have trees back there yet. It's a brand new neighborhood. You will be able to see directly into our backyard. There will be no privacy. We could never go out there and just hang out. Me and my wife were planning on having our first children there. I would probably not feel comfortable with my kids just being able to say, hey, kids, go out in the backyard, when there could be, 20, 30 different people. It could be all sorts of people in apartment complexes behind our home that could be seeing into our house. Our bedroom windows are right there. Almost everybody on that street right there with the properties backing up into it, all of our windows are facing that apartment complex. I try not to be super pessimistic, but I also don't trust a lot of people, and there's a lot of crazy people out there nowadays, and that's why we moved into a safe neighborhood with the police station right there next to it. So I would really ask for y'all to consider not only the privacy, safety, but also the land value. I don't own the land, but I also don't want my mother and father-in-law to lose money on buying this property to try to help us start our lives together. And everything kind of go downhill from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brockman. Is there anyone else here to speak in opposition? Is there anyone here to speak in favor? Yes, sir. You'll please state your name and address.
Good evening, y'all. Thank y'all for being here tonight. So Jason Esselny, 8345 Upland Avenue. So I'm going to be the builder on the property. Really trying to create something a little outside of the norm here with apartment. I mean, it kind of has a negative connotation to it. We got some really cool creative ideas. SK and I team up really well with stuff. We're planning on, it is going to be high density residential. It is going to be apartment. There is going to be probably a little bit extra traffic maybe at all hours, whereas commercial may not. But I also feel like it's still going to give a very unique appeal to the subdivision. And, when it comes down to values, I don't know that they will actually be affected by that. But I do want to address some concerns like what Mr. Yepes said about the trash. I know we're planning, we've got some little pockets there inside of the property line that we're going to have some little trash receptacles. We're going to try to keep up with, and of course grounds maintenance. We're going to have to keep the beauty of it up, but we're already kind of planning that up front. Also, to address Mr. Brockman's concerns, and I totally understand. And if it were me too, I definitely understand where he's coming from on that. So I want to do everything and I can ahead of time to plan for that and be as good of a neighbor as I can, because ultimately I get where he's coming from. And so when we're talking about doing these tree line kind of like privacy area, we're going to have, we're shooting for around 30-foot tall trees. I want to try to get as condensed in there as we can. I mean, it's going to be a pretty good amount of trees, a lot of landscaping. We are trying to bring a unique appeal to this property by putting in a little bit extra landscaping all throughout the property, not just on the back side. So I think visually it's going to have a really nice look to it, but also I would like to create that level of privacy. And one of the things that we were kind of considering when we were designing this is how far back can we get them from that fence line? So that way you really can't easily see as, you know, as hard as it is, I guess, maybe through the trees, but hopefully there's very little, if none, that you can see through to get back into to the backside of their property. So I'm really excited about this project. I think it could be a really beautiful one when we're done with it. But I guess that's all I had, unless y'all have any questions.
Did you meet with any of the neighbors to show them any site plans or any of your plans?
We actually haven't gotten really far enough into the plans yet. We're just trying to get across this hurdle first before we really finish everything up.
Have you built anything like this somewhere else?
So this would be my first apartment complex, but we've done a ton of multifamily projects. My background was commercial construction, so I built some really big commercial projects in the past and built a really beautiful home. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Nesloni Homes, but definitely take pride in my work.
Any other questions?
That's all I had. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else here to speak in favor? Yes, sir.
Excuse me. Good evening. My name is Will Stevens. I'm with AMD Engineering at 6515 68th Street. I just want to add a couple of points. First being that this property was actually previously zoned A2 before it was rezoned in September of 2021 to C2A. So before its current zoning, it was actually zoned A2 for apartments. I just wanted to bring that up. And, I think another point to make is I think this project has a great team on it. I think it's got a great architecture firm and a great custom home builder. So I think it's a team that cares about the product. And it seems like they've already taken steps to kind of address some of the visibility concerns from the, excuse me, from the height of the structure. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in favor? Okay, not seeing anyone. We'll close the public hearing. We'll need a motion.
For matter of discussion, motion to approve zone case 3175G.
Second.
Second, Mr. Bell. All right.
Well,
You're
on the face of it, I mean, it looks like a logical place to put an apartment complex. I would feel better if they had talked to the neighbors to show them what they were going to do, but having said that, you can promise a lot of things, and if this is your first apartment complex, you don't have anything to show to back up your promises. So it's kind of a little bit of a chicken and egg thing. I understand the neighbors' concerns, but and we see this all the time where people buy property that has a lot of land around it and they think, I'm living out in the country and nothing's ever going to come here. And the fact of the matter is it's moving that direction anyway. So it's a question of what's going to be the most promising thing to be put in that place. Something's going in that spot. And so, those are my thoughts.
I'm trying to think of another case, and I don't know if it was the same team. I think it was. This came up on 114th a long time ago. No, it's between Indiana and Quaker on 114th. It was across the street from the neighborhood, and we had this same concern. And that had a lesser setback than this on the resident side. You remember that, Kristen? Is this ringing a bell for any of y'all?
So, yes, there's two cases I think you're referring to. There is C2A on the corner of 114th and Memphis, but a little bit further south at 122nd in Memphis, there's an A2 zone case. That one had a lot of discussion.
Kristen, on an A2, what's the height limit?
Under our current code, A2 is limited to 3-story.
Okay.
Okay.
And this is
Well, I think that's in favor of changing it to that, and the fact that it used to be
It was
A2.
that way 2 years,
Yeah.
less than 2 years ago.
And that it has a height limit, I think is in its favor.
A2.
So just to clarify, under the Unified Development Code, A2 will become part of the high-density residential district. So it'll have a 4-story limitation for apartments. If they choose to do mixed use, it would be 75 foot.
We're not
Again,
considering
telegraphing
mixed.
future discussions.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay. And it's 60 foot, there's a 60-foot setback. Right, isn't that what you said? We had
planned.
60 feet.
Yes, sir, that's what's planned right now, is a 60-foot for the.
And what's the required setback in this?
Less than that.
Sorry, boy, you know.
No, it's fine.
We're going to, under the current UDC for high-density residential will be.
Sorry.
Sorry. So what we researched on the UDC for high-density residential, on that back setback would be 20 foot, so is what we found on the chart. With the size of the lot and how parking has to work, we have to have parking on the perimeter. We can't put a building there to make this work, so.
Fire lane, parking.
Yeah.
And the buffer yards required. Okay. That does make it a little more attractive. As opposed to if you went with retail center, commercial. Because then you would have simply just a fire lane that abutted the alley. So, anything else? Brandon's working. Good, Brandon? Okay. We have a motion, we have a second. Call the question, all in favor? Aye. Raise your hands. Aye. Opposed? 2, 3. You get it, Karen? Okay. All right, that's 5.14. Okay, we're done with zone cases. Before we get into other business, y'all want to take a break?
15 minutes.
10 minutes? 15 minutes? Let's do 8:45. Come back at 8:45. Ready? We're going to get back. We're back in session for item 6.1. Is that right? For consideration by the Planning and Zoning Commission of a final report, Lubbock City Council on amendments for the Unified Development Code, zoning map, and documentation to be submitted with plat applications. So we will start at the top and let's work our way through it. Y'all ready?
So the way I understand this, Zach, is we're just going to talk about these, but we need to vote all at one time.
Yeah.
So we need to go through these and make just kind of table decisions.
A poll decision?
Yeah.
Right, just like the first time when y'all did the UDC.
That's been too many meetings ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, item number 1, lot density and dimensions, city staff comment. I'll just go straight, maximum building heights and minimum setbacks are for principal structures, and we struck the rest of it. or the city staff struck the rest of it. For multi-lot developments with common parking areas or party wall style construction, lot sizes, side setbacks may be reduced subject to the Director of Planning approval, and she wanted to strike that. Anything reference to Director of Planning's approval was struck. As far as the McClendon-Holman Group, all developments in NC districts shall be in accordance with the table. I won't reference that. Y'all can read it. Maximum building heights and minimum setbacks are for principal structures. For multi-lot developments with common parking areas or party wall style construction, struck the Director of Planning's approval, and then minimum lot width be 20 feet, and minimum lot width shall allow 1,000 square foot.
So that,
Go ahead.
so that on item B, what that does is just further define what the minimum lot should be for, is garden, office type townhome situations. So if I'm explaining this right, I think what they're trying to do is just make it definable. Like on 114th Street, you can plat, say, 10 of those in a row, and then they can sell off 5 or sell off 4 and group them. Is that right?
Terry, you want to come elaborate? And then with that, while he's coming up, they also said make this same change to section 39.02 006B3.
Yeah, Jordan, I'll be brief. You're close, but you're thinking of sort of back in the day when we purposefully did very narrow tracks so that they could be sold in increments and then grouped together. We're no longer allowed to do that. This is where it truly would be separately owned narrow lots. Now, you were close. On one portion of 114th Street, we did the narrow lots in anticipation of selling groups. But to the east of that, we did, by golly, 20-foot wide lots that are party wall style construction. It's a little different than what you had spelled out.
Okay.
And both of those have.
Thank you.
So for multi-lot developments with common parking areas and party wall style construction, minimum lot width shall be 20 feet, minimum lot shall be 1,000 square feet.
Kristen? And I know y'all had y'alls and y'all struck all that, took your part off. I know that they came back in and put this in at the last meeting. I don't think we've got really a chance to hear what staff's thoughts are on it, whether they think it's a significant change, if it's not, if it's an issue. And that's something I would like to hear as well.
The potential issue they may run into is really with the building code rather than the zoning code. The building code is going to have restrictions for, especially if the building on the 1,000 square foot lot gets built up against those property lines. They're going to have restrictions in terms of firewalls and openings and what they're allowed to do. So they may run into some issues there.
What happens if they run into issues?
They will have to pull the building back from the property line.
Okay, so that's a case-by-case basis?
Yes.
All right. I personally see no good reason not to accept these changes on either A or B.
Well,
so in other words, I think that I would go with striking it with the city staff, what they have struck, and then adding minimum lot width shall be 20 feet and minimum
so in
lot.
other words, you're amenable to B and C.
Both of them. Or B, yeah, A, B, and C.
Well, but they're
You gotta go with
their difference.
Yeah, it's either.
So it's either A or B and C. So that's where.
Then I would go to B and C, yeah.
Okay.
I think that's appropriate.
Yeah,
So the divider, Terry, is just a 2-hour firewall, right? On those. I mean, I know we're talking zoning, but the question was posed about the separation. It's just a 2-hour firewall, right?
Yeah, it's whatever the building code requires. It's just not, you're not gathering up a bunch of narrow lots in one owned building. It's truly constructed like a townhouse, but it's just in a commercial setting.
Yeah.
Which could be a tilt wall.
Mr. Chairman, can I shed some light on what y'all are talking about?
Hold on, Stephen, give me just a minute. So you've got.
What a firewall is in the building code.
No, that's all right. Unless, well, does anybody want to entertain that? You understand what a firewall is in the building code?
Yes.
Okay. So back to what you were saying. it's either A or B and C?
Right.
Okay. So any other discussion? Does anybody have any quarrels with that? So we're not going to make a motion on each one, but it's my understanding what we're all saying here is 1B and 1C, 1B and C, if you will.
Correct.
Yes.
You keeping track of this?
Yeah, I'm keeping track
Thank
of
you.
it.
Okay. Is everybody ready to move on to number 2?
Yes.
You good? Okay. Accessory dwelling unit, applicability, previous existing accessory dwelling units. We went through this last. City staff struck and the director of planning may deem the necessary dwelling. Obviously, director of planning, they're striking that piece of it. Adding when the property owner provides sufficient evidence to the director of planning showing the structure was constructed as or converted to an accessory dwelling unit on or before November 20th, 1980. Whereas McClendon Holman party say make no change to the language. And if you remember previous discussion, what we were talking about was, I don't know if anybody has documentation back to 1980. And I think the reason why that was in there was because that was the starting point from where we began as planning and zoning. Is that right? On accessory
That
dwelling
was
units?
the cutoff for legal
Right.
accessory dwelling units, yes.
So if we make no change, it's either you're conforming or you're not. It's very black and white. It's not going back to 1980. Am I understanding that correctly?
So if you make no change, then you're adopting the UDC.
You adopt it, you're legal or you're not. There's really, and the argument there is, well, we've had 40 years to get legal. If you're not legal at this point, you're not legal. It's kind of
But if you have the certificate, the registered apartment certificate, you're legal.
Yes.
Yeah.
which that makes sense to me. I don't know. I don't know why we'd go back to 1980. You're not going to have
I don't think you can prove that it's been continuous use since 43 years ago.
Yeah. Anybody, I mean, y'all have anything to add to that?
No,
or am I
I'm still
crazy?
going back on a lot of these, going back and looking at Kristen, her thoughts, because again, we haven't got to heard the staff's
that's true.
pros and
I'm
cons.
sorry.
I mean, point, counterpoint, not to say that they may not have differences, they may not, but unlike to you, it seems like to me, it's easier you are or you're not. It's not you're in between. But your thoughts, Kristen?
So we originally put the date in just to help clarify that what would have been a legal structure, legally built. Because if something was, an accessory dwelling unit was built in 1995, it was built illegally. That wouldn't have been a legal use. We touched on this briefly at the joint hearing, and I think, Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, if we remove the date, then anything in existence at the time of the UDC becomes non-conforming, whether it was built legally or not, and then you just enforce the UDC moving forward.
Well, that convinces me that we ought to go with the staff's recommendations on this.
Because I guess if you go with the staff's recommendations, it's really not going to do any harm because they're still going to have to prove it either way.
Yeah.
And it doesn't give them going, well, it was. I mean, I don't think it makes too much difference either way, but I think if you leave the dates in, at least you've got a cutoff and somebody knows and they go, well, what year was it that you had to do it? And
Okay, we want to.
I mean, so is this like on A, is this green?
we would accept A as they have it right there.
Yeah.
Take out the director's part and use the part where the property owner provides. Yeah, just leaving 1980 in there.
So that the green writing is saying unless you have the certificate.
Yes, the green writing is saying that your structure still had to have been built legally under the former code prior to 1980. If we remove the green and just leave it as is, then it will allow everything built since then illegally to become non-conforming and continue being used, which is an option. So it's whether or not you want to cut it off at 1980 or cut it off in 2023.
Cut it off in 2023 because if you go back that far, what's the we already said there's a greater likelihood they won't have any of the stuff, right?
That's true, but if you do it at 2023, that means if they built it, then they're legal, they're just non-conforming.
Because if they're illegal, what's gonna happen?
Without the 1980 date, they will become non-conforming and can continue that use.
See what I'm saying? People that.
Can I have an example, please?
I
I'm so
built something
sorry.
in
I'm a little.
1985 and I didn't get, I built
Sure.
something in 1985 and I didn't get permits for it and it's illegal. But all of a sudden we changed to go to 2023, it becomes non-conforming and legal and I can continue to use it. Is that correct?
Yes.
So you're letting the people who built stuff and did it illegally benefit from it.
Okay, I'm thinking logically now, and y'all may not understand this. How many things have we allowed that to happen to? I mean, who's going back and tagging all of these situations from the past? Nobody. So,
When it's a problem.
When it's a problem.
yeah, only when it's
When
a
complaints
problem.
arise.
So,
Yeah.
what is going back to 1980 and starting today what's the,
So in a single year, how many detached apartment accessory ADUs issues have you had?
Less than 10 per year
10 per year?
at the most.
do you see what I'm saying? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's why I lean towards
Well,
the
you know, but I'll
UDC.
use an example. My niece and nephew own a house and they have one behind it. When they bought the house, they thought it was legal and found out it wasn't. So they've been living there for 10 years and they've been abiding by the law and not renting it. So by doing this, you're basically punishing them for following the law where they could have been renting it illegally and now been legal.
Yeah, but I don't think we can go back and fix all those situations.
I guess that's
Yeah.
where I'm coming from. I can't fix the past. I can only move forward. I can't go backwards. Does that make sense?
And the UDC, to me, is very black and white moving forward. There are so many different circumstances like that exist that, anyways, that's my.
No,
two
no, and I
cents.
agree. I can see both sides. It's just,
So just to clarify, if you go with option B, you're accepting everything up to today.
Yes.
And then going forward, you got to comply with the UDC and the setbacks and the height requirements.
Yep.
And it's almost, I don't want to say impossible, but it's very difficult to get an ADU. Would it be under UDC?
It would be more difficult. Minimum lot size
On a small lot?
is 10,000 square feet. So the majority of residential lots are less than 10,000 square feet.
okay, I can go with B.
And y'all, Avi, Brandon, you have an opinion one way or the other?
I like the clean, hey, we're starting with this, let's move forward. I'm not saying forget about the past, but like I said, it's hard to prove, let's not go back there.
To make
Let's
a
just-
clean break.
Yeah, clean break, let's move forward, that's where I'm at. So B, I guess is what I'm saying.
I can go B.
I'm B.
I'm B.
Susan?
Okay, you can.
B.
Amendment 2B. All right, number 3, sign exempt from regulation generally.
Accepted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Directed by city state. They struck, the exemption does not apply to school districts. That's, yeah. Everybody good with that? That was a
That was
mess
kind of
up.
crazy.
Yeah, that was a cleanup.
That was removing, build, yeah. Yep. Gotcha. You got 3A. All right. Reduction overlay. Ooh. I didn't print off I didn't bring my packet.
So
See attached red line page 68.
I can touch on B and C if you'd like for me to.
Sure. You want to start with city staff? You have yours? Because it's between hers and Mont and Holman's, it's like 30 pages.
So Kristen just asked a question, kind of go, so, and whether you know, is Mont and Terry's deal coming in basically the same as yours, but just adding those comments into them? Is that correct, Terry?
So those two comments were what staff struck from the reduction overlay district
Okay.
that they would like to see added back in.
So staff struck approval of a reduction overlay shall not require approval of the zoning board of adjustment, ZBA.
And it won't. That was just redundant, which is why we struck it.
Okay.
So even if, okay.
But they're putting it back in.
just to further clarify, and that's fine. We only struck it because it was not necessary.
Okay. And then the reduction over, I'm sorry, go ahead, James.
The reduction overlay district may prohibit billboards even if allowed in the base zoning district.
So that one we struck because billboards are not a permitted use in any district. You would have to require specific use. So to me, this would be prohibiting someone from even making the request, which I do not think is the intent of this district.
So it's being more restrictive on billboards even in the specific use, so that a developer has the option to say, I'm going to come develop this piece of property, and no, you're not allowed to have billboards regardless of what the...
Yeah, it's saying you're not even allowed to ask. But the purpose of this district is to restrict what is permitted in the base zoning district.
Man, and we beat up billboards in the
Yeah, I know.
UDC, and we all voted. I was, not to show my cards, I think I voted against it, but everybody else voted in favor of getting rid of billboards. If this
voted
just
for it,
further
too.
gets rid of them, I
Yeah.
mean, if we started down that path and the city council decided to adopt it, I think you send it to them with the restriction.
I would just kind of say, me looking at this going and listening to what staff has said, I understand what B and C are saying, but I don't see a reason why we couldn't just stay with A. If it's just clarifying and it's already not prohibited, I don't have a problem with that.
I agree with that.
I agree. I can agree with that.
So on C, Terry, it's already not allowed if you request a reduction overlay, it's already not allowed in that. Billboards are not allowed citywide without.
We already
without-
said no to billboards. I don't know why we would give any crack in the armor where somebody has a shot at putting a billboard in the middle of an
Well,
overlay.
they're trying to prevent anybody from putting.
Right, you got to think of in the context of what an RO district is supposed to be, which is you have sort of a baseline set of things that are allowed in a zoning district, and we say, well, we want to do an overlay zoning district that prohibits X, Y, and Z, right? Because we want there to be a zoning element in place to further refine what we think we'd like our development to look like via a RO district, right? If I remember correctly, we still have this option for specific use in the LI and GI zoning districts.
Yeah.
And so the way the code currently is set up, it would at least give a developer an option to do an RO district in those two industrial districts to basically set the hammer down and say, I don't want even the
LI.
specific use in my LI or GI district.
It's permitted.
Yeah, that was where the mindset was.
Is that not the way you understand it?
No,
That's-
I understand that's their request. To me, the RO district is to restrict what's permitted in the base zoning district. A specific use requires a whole new request, hearing, approval by city council. So to me, you're restricting someone from even asking, where the intent of the overlay district is to restrict what's permitted by right.
But
We already did that.
If it's your development and you're wanting to put an added layer of no billboards, it's your development, and isn't that a positive thing, right? I mean, if it's your property and you're saying, I don't want billboards.
What we're trying to do is have an option in there where it's enforceable through zoning and it's not having to be fussed about in a private court matter through deed restrictions. That's essentially what we're trying to do.
Okay.
Yes.
We've spent, I don't know, umpteen hours arguing over billboards, and we took it out. Said we're not putting billboards. We don't want billboards throughout the city. That was the number one biggest argument, and this just further extends that.
Yeah, and furthermore, if something changes and suddenly billboards become a by right use at some point, this is in place that is a tool for protection.
I personally like that.
I think it's
yeah.
not really a negative.
I mean, I get that, everybody is having to give and take a little bit, but that's just, that was where our head was at on that particular item.
This doesn't change all the conditions
Yeah, because LIGI, Light Industrial General.
And then we're also not having to come back and have those conversations back and forth. It's done. There's no billboards. That's what everybody voted.
Right. So the city of Lubbock Billboard Committee, they come and fight every billboard. They don't have to
Yes.
come fight those billboards.
That's right.
Or they don't get the opportunity.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah,
even
they don't get
considered.
I guess it's a matter of perspective, right? Because
It's not what you say,
I
it's
don't-
how you say it.
Exactly. I'm not the pro billboard guy. I'm pretty sure I voted against it, but
Well,
everything's up for discussion. Typically, like, everything's negotiable. So if I just feel like adding that extra layer of this will never happen here. I understand it's fail safe, like if something were to change, but I don't know. It just seems like you're handcuffing them now too.
It's overkill.
Yeah, we already said we don't want this, but 20, 30 years from now, people change their mind. I don't know. Maybe everybody loves billboards then. I don't know.
well, that'll be the next
be
piece.
digital.
Probably.
Yeah,
It
but
will.
in 20 or 30
Why?
years, if they want to change it, they can change it.
They got to jump through two
So why
hoops
do
at
we
that
need to
point.
say it again?
Yeah.
Well, I guess
It's already done.
Because
They have
it's
to
my
come. They have to
understanding,
come for
Kristen,
specific
right
use.
now, it's no billboards, period, right?
No, they can do it with, in certain districts with
Specific use in
specific, with
LINGI.
specific use. They can come ask, doesn't mean it's
Yes,
gonna get
they
it.
can ask.
So they have to come ask each time they
Yes.
want a billboard.
Mhm.
I'm fine with that. Have a discussion about it. You want
I
a
think
billboard?
that was
Move
part
on.
of what the discussion was, though, because we always get these billboard cases. So, yeah, they can come ask, and they keep coming asking, and we keep turning them down, and
That's part of the process, in my opinion. It's like you don't get your day in
We
court.
change out.
So what they're wanting to do is just say, basically, we're gonna say no, but there's no point in you even going for us to say no. Because they'll be in control of saying that, right?
Only in the RO district.
only in the reduction overlay district.
Yes, ma'am, and you need to tell me if I shouldn't be just standing up here on the fly like this, but I can see this scenario playing out. I bought a quarter section of land that is prime for LI and GI zoning. So I get the LI and GI zoning and I say, I don't want billboards, or I don't want a whatever it happens to be. And I set that up in the RO district. And if I sit on that, and if I sell that property, then I don't know any reason why a new owner couldn't come in and through a new zone case, remove the RO, right? So it's everything, nothing in life is permanent, right? But it is, again, it's just that sort of that layer that our group was hoping to have in place.
I'll
That's
tell you
all it
what's
is.
permanent is this discussion about billboards.
All right, so,
I'm fine with C. I mean, if it's the developer offering his property, he's wanting to develop it, and he's gonna say, I double sure you, we're not gonna do billboards here, I don't have an issue with that.
So when he said that it would then you would have to take it to a court hearing, explain that a little bit more for me, how this protects the developer.
It's becoming more and more difficult to enforce deed restrictions. And so if absolutely, somebody can put whatever deed restrictions they want to on their property and avoid this discussion altogether. We're looking for opportunities to not have to carry that into the court of law because deed restrictions are much more difficult to enforce than zoning. It gets it out of the private fuss and it gets it into a code issue that's easier to track.
Okay. So. Homeowners Association on steroids.
So A and C,
I'm here already.
B's already in there?
Right. The zoning board of adjustment will never be required because you're reducing and restricting. You're not varying something to something more.
A and C is.
A and C.
Brandon, I think, are you in favor of C? I mean, general census, we want to see
Who's where?
who's where. Thank you.
Yeah. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, I guess.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, there we go. A and C, you
Got it.
got
A and C.
it? Number 5, subdivision standards. We're gonna go through each one of these.
So these are, well, I can let them talk about it, but these are really just kind of some
Cleanup.
cleanup things that I've been hearing over and over and over that they would like to make permanent. But we can go line by line if y'all want, but it's,
I was just going to make one mention. This first item, or B, it actually, the state law requires it now to go to the Planning and Zoning Commission for an appeal. That was just an error, an oversight on my part in changing the plating requirements. So 5B is what it should be.
Okay. So do we need to accept that amendment? Okay.
Sure.
So we already know we
Already know
got
you
B.
got B in there. So how do you want to,
Can we get
Skim this.
Kristen or
Yeah, you wanna-
staff's view on these? If there's any concerns from staff?
so, okay, but before we jump into this for the next 30 minutes, so when I just look at items C through J, from city staff position, are there any of those you're just like, yes, that's accepted, that city staff is in agreeance with, so we don't have to address it?
Sure. I have no issue with C. That just clarifies signed by current property owner. D and E, well, D I have no issue with. Rather than putting the actual fee on the checklist, then we have to change it every time we change our fees.
That makes sense.
Change it to as established by city council, so that's fine. E, that just further clarifies the type of water and schematic layouts. That's totally fine. F, that's the scale. There's no issue with that. Honestly, the scale is not as important now as it used to be since everything's digital. As long as we can read it, it's fine. G, I don't have an issue with the G. You're tying it to a section corner. H, we're in agreement with H. They have to have access to the information in order to be able to provide it. So we're going to work with GIS to make sure that information is on our website. I, we need the approval signature block on the pre-plats because that's going to be a requirement now. And then J, I don't have an issue with. Victor, did you have any comments on item J where it states that amend the document requirements to read the following surveyor's certificate shall be placed on every final plat. Final plats presented for recording shall be signed and sealed by the surveyor.
I have no issue with that.
Okay. So no, we're good with all of them.
Okay.
That was
So
easy.
we go with that, so we have the questions. We've got basically B through J, and I'm asking this for legal to kind of go through. So how would we address that with the city staff's part? Would we do A with the addition of, or with the addition and corrections according to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good question. Did you write all that down? Yeah, A through J.
Yeah, well, I got it, just trying to figure out how to say.
And so for everybody on P and Z, are you comfortable with that? You understand? Do you have any specific questions on any of those that you want to discuss further? Or are you comfortable? Good? Okay. Notification boundary. So we'll let Brandon start with this since he used this as an example. 200 to 400. Okay, before you jump in though, legally, these are two different things. The 200 foot is state statute law.
For states.
And then
Supermajority.
so that's one boundary, and then we're just adding an additional boundary to that. How does this, there were some legal comments that came up about all that.
So the state requires us to notify every property owner within 200-foot distance from the property, subject property. Those properties and the owners in that 200 feet are the only ones that get considered for written opposition if there needs to be a supermajority vote at the city council. The others would be like the other 201 feet to 400 would be treated as like somebody coming here at city council meeting and, in favor or opposition of a case. And they wouldn't be weighted the same.
Kind of like what we've been dealing with the Overton and the Tech
That's right.
Terrace.
Right,
It's
we
the
still
same
get it, we're
thing.
just
They
giving them notices
Yeah,
instead of.
they just spread the word, but the city is willing to give it out. And I think that's a good thing.
I think that's a courteous thing to do.
I think that's a good
I mean,
thing.
we hear from these people anyway, right? And so, and I think that it goes a long way for the city sort of reaching out and saying, we want to hear from you, instead of them coming here saying, I can't believe you left me out of this conversation. And so I don't see any downside to spreading it to 400, except maybe a little more work.
And cost.
Postage.
Here, I'll get it off.
Okay, thanks. Just to clarify, I'm not stating a position, taking a position, just explaining what the issue was that's been brought up.
Can we hear from the staff if they object to spreading it out to 400? What are the downsides to doing that?
Because y'all are going to have to keep track of them separately.
Yes,
Postage.
correct. Because, as stated, the trigger for the supermajority vote is only what's within the 200-foot boundary. So yes, it's double the number of notices, so double the cost, paper, mailings, everything. And it's keeping track of the two separate boundaries. That's the only cons per se.
So on the official report, when we get the report from you guys before P&Z and it says, 2 in favor, 8 opposed, will you guys just report the 8 opposed inside the 200, or do you report to us all of them?
We will report all of them.
And so we draw 2 boundaries so that we can see, like, this is the 200.
Yes.
So we all know that it's really the 200, within that 200 boundary that matters in terms of the law.
Yes.
But the extra 200 feet around just seems to me that that's just I think that's a courtesy on behalf of the city to do that, because we know that there, I mean, most of the time, nobody comes from even within the 200 boundary. But then on many cases, though, you'll get the whole neighborhood to show up. I'm not going to mention which ones. But.
You also think about this too. A lot of times within that 200 feet, there's only 2 or 3 people, but the impact is going to go beyond that.
Yeah.
And so I think it's only fair that we do let the 400 know, because it may just be 10 more feet and it impacts that someone else. So I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, and
I think it's a great thing.
The point of a public hearing is to give people a voice.
I used the example several years ago. I had one, not through this, but through the housing standards. And there was I'm 6 houses from the corner, and it was on the corner across the street, and I was outside the notification. And to me, that's just, I'm half a block away. It's not like I'm.
That, yeah.
Well, okay, then it sounds like the majority, Brandon, I don't know if you want to add to it, but I'm not in favor of it. I think that word of mouth works better than just mailing out a piece of paper. I think half the people in the 200-foot radius are mailed a notice and they never get it.
Well, I think.
But they hear about it from their neighbors. But I'm not going to.
But I think also, it's true, word of mouth works better in some neighborhoods than it does in others. But when somebody, like we had a case tonight where somebody said, I showed this to my neighbors and they hadn't gotten one. And so this automatically creates some ill will. Like the city's trying to lock us out of this conversation. And that's not the case, but that's their perception. And so they come in here already, angry at us. Yeah. So I think aside from cost and extra work for the city, I don't think there's a downside to reaching out a little bit broader than the 200 feet.
Is there another means of reaching out in that broader range from 201 to 400 foot?
Well, you'd have to ask the staff. I mean, I don't know how they would do that.
You have to be mailed notice, I imagine.
Yeah.
USPS is so dependable.
I mean, the administrative undertaking that would take to.
You could just go door knocking.
No thanks.
I think where you're seeing a lot of this is primarily, and I could be off, but is a lot where I keep hearing it here is District 1 and District 2, because you have so much industrial, we're so spread out. So I almost think it almost targets those neighborhoods of just because there's an industrial park there means that the ones that are directly affected by whatever's going in should be notified. That is the right thing to do. And I just don't see how.
Across all
this-
districts for 2 districts.
Yes, well, but it is 2 districts that matter. It's one district that matters. It's one block that matters.
Well,
It's
You
the
know,
people in those
so-
It's
districts
just
that
like,
matter.
it's just like the 75 foot versus 45 foot.
Oh, that's coming.
No.
That's
It
coming.
is.
Let's not get ahead of
Same
ourselves.
principle.
I disagree.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
So, Mr. Chair,
Same principle.
one thing to consider is that if you all don't have to come to a consensus on every one of these, you can just have competing motions once y'all go through it all.
No, let's do it. I think everybody,
do it. Let's
majority's
just-
on
let's
this.
put this to
Right,
bed.
we're doing
Yeah.
it.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
bed. Let's
All
go.
right, 6A? Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
So
All right.
let's take the poll.
No, I think everybody's in favor of it.
I'm good with it, whatever.
And, what was that, A, 6A? All right, moving on, 7, definition of a family. This is going from, it was 2, they're striking 3, going back to 2. Citizen
no
proposal,
downside
let's
to
see
that.
this.
No.
Citizen struck no more than 3, and any number of unrelated persons living and cooking together as a single housekeeping unit in a single-family home that are under the same lease. Residents, groups, homes are included within this definition. That's a citizen's proposal. City staff said make no change, leave it at 3, and then McClendon Holman Party said make no change, keep the current language.
So I'm going to vote that we leave it at 3. So I think that in today's world, the definition of family is a whole lot broader than it's ever been. And I don't see, when we talked about you've got 2 divorced people that are living together and they have a child, and yes, everyone tells me, well, this is really just for an enforcement purpose. It also could be used against someone to target someone else.
Yeah.
And I think we have to look at the full picture of where today's society accepts family.
I agree.
And be very, very careful as a city of saying what our definition of family is that just because me and James are living together and we're not married and we have children, that's the example.
Okay,
Is the news here?
Whole different story.
Next topic.
But I just want it to be where, that one neighbor doesn't say, well, I don't want that type of family living next door to me, so I'm going to use this. Because that can happen. We can say it's not going to happen, but it can happen, and we have to be careful as a society that we're not alienating groups of people.
I agree.
That's a good point. I think that also plays to 2. And it always has been 2, and I have personal experience with this. That's why I'm leaning towards going back to 2, more than 2 unrelated people. From what I've experienced in the past, this isn't enforced. It's not a city code enforced. It's typically used whenever there's a nuisance in a highly rented neighborhood. And the majority of cases that I've experienced are smaller homes that were built in the 40s or 50s. And the increase of cars, where they're parking in the yard, they're parking in the street, they're parking on both sides of the street, where you can't have 2 lanes, that's a big concern, and everybody always comes up and talks about traffic. And when I have seen it being used, kind of to your point, whether it's 2 or 3, you can use it to target anybody. And I'm going to use, I know a specific neighborhood where I would say well over 50%, well, I don't want to, I'm going to say the majority of the rental homes have more than 2 unrelated people living in it. However, it's most of the time it's not a problem. But however, there are certain cases where it becomes a problem, and that's then enforced and used for typically the immediate neighbors to the front, sides, and back. But
And I
I don't know.
understand
That's
if
kind of where
there's special circumstances and special situations, and it's only used in this type of situation. Y'all say it's few and far between, but at the end of the day, it's still being used wrong in some cases. So when you have something like this in play, we need to be careful about that because it can be used and target, like she said, there's people being targeted, can be targeted. Not that they are being targeted, but people can be targeted. And let's look at the economy today. A lot of people are having to live together because they can't afford to live separately, and they may not be related. And is it not targeting a specific population of individuals? Could that be college students? Could that be mixed families? It could be targeting more than just those that are problem and nuisances.
You know, there was on that citizen proposal, some of the language in there is family means one or more persons related by blood, adoption, or marriage, or any number of unrelated persons living and cooking together. I don't want to get tied up. That's hard to define. Yeah, I see, you're right, Renee, I'm not.
So here's a question. Do y'all know how many times this has ever been enforced? How often that happens?
I don't know.
I've done it
Just
3
from talking to my clients, you know, they've told me it's an effective tool for codes to use, but it's all, just like any of our
It's
ordinances.
basically complaint driven.
As most of our ordinances are, yeah. But that's all, I don't know personally.
Okay, thank you.
But that complaint can be used not just in a tech situation. And that's kind
And
of
that
my
fine
fear.
is like
This is
$2,000.
the whole,
Yes.
remember, it's everywhere.
Most of these scenarios are not like there's 2 or 3 people living there. It's like there's 6 college students living together. So I don't know that the 2 or 3 is going to like matter that much, but I think that we should leave it at 3 for the reasons already mentioned.
If
So,
we got it, if we have to
Terry
have it
nailed
at
that.
all, if we have to define family at
Yeah.
all.
All
I'd
right,
be in
so-
favor of getting out of the business of defining family personally.
I don't
but
think we should define it, but
if
we
I got
have
to choose between
define
2 and
it.
3, then I'm choosing 3.
So real quick, show of hands, who wants to keep it at 3? All right, who wants to keep it at 2? All right,
So we're going to.
I'm just bucking the system. That was 7. We're jumping into 8, land use matrix. Transportation, utility, and communication, power generation, transmission, and distribution includes large solar collectors and windmills. Amend from permitted use P to specific use S in all 3 districts. Those 3 districts being IP, LI, and GI. Remind me, I'm drawing a blank on IP.
Industrial park.
Industrial park, okay.
I am for that.
Well,
Because
before we get into discussion, and then McClendon Holman says make no change to the current language. So city staff says make it specific use.
I agree with the specific use. I think that's one that you've already got in the districts that run into a lot of the problems that you already have now. I think this is given a little more say than just anybody comes in. And they're gonna have to come in and bring their case to, what's it gonna be? Are you gonna put a solar farm there? What are you gonna put? You're gonna put windmills? What are you gonna do? So I think this is one that just, it's a nod to saying, hey, we respect the neighbors' opinions and everything for it. I don't think it's gonna be harming anybody. I think maybe it's another step, but I think it's a good protection for everybody.
Yeah, I agree, James.
I agree with the specific use.
Okay. Does anybody have any opposition to that? Avi, Brandon? Okay, then it sounds like we'll move forward with 8A. Number 9, residential carport going from 20 feet to 24 feet. And it's only one recommendation, city staff. Terry and Mont didn't have a recommendation, right? There's nothing published, so.
Correct me if I'm wrong, in the carports anyway, now they have to be the facing of the same of the building. They can't be your
Same material.
Tractor Supply, throw out metal ones, so,
Right.
okay.
And, yeah, we're just increasing the length. Okay. And does anybody have any opposition to that? We're good? Okay. Item number 10, high-density residential. We're all well-versed on this now. Lot density and dimensions zoning map. City staff says no proposed amendments. McClendon Holman Group says make no change to the current language. The citizens, Cindy Prattis, Richard Murphy, they want to amend, let me just jump to add, limit on vertical mixed use in residential neighborhoods. The standard for vertical mixed use in the mixed use subdivision shall not apply on a block containing 1 or more lots zoned RE, SF1, or SF2. And then Stephen Falk, amend that section 3902.004 He said, we said, maximum building height for vertical use from 75, strike 75, cap at 45. Additional height for the verified vertical mixed use. The maximum building height for the vertical mixed use project may be increased with the approval of specific use.
So just for clarification, the current HDR as passed and as it is now, it already states that if it's in a standard block face, that if there's mixed uses in there, then it can't be HDR. Is that right?
You can't mix housing types on a block face. So if
Okay.
there are single-family homes, duplexes, garden homes, cottage homes, any of that on the block face, you can't drop in apartments.
So basically what they're saying is they're trying to change it, recommending block instead of block face, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
And that's C.
That's C,
Yes.
yes.
Yep.
D is just wanting to do the 75 to 45 unless they come to us.
For specifics, yes.
So on C1, the block, that's saying both sides,
Yeah, block is.
but
the
block
whole-
face is one side.
It's going to be the streets facing each other, correct? Is that a block face?
We have it defined in the UDC. Block is the aggregate of private lots and rear alleys circumscribed by the streets. And then a block face is defined as one side of a street between two connective features intersecting that street. The features can be other streets or boundaries of standard geographic areas, such as parkland, bulb of a cul-de-sac, or other right-of-way.
All right, layman's.
Yeah, Brandon.
Well, so maybe the easy way to think of it is a block would be the properties that share an alley that are bound by streets.
Yes, okay.
And a block face is just from one intersection to the other or some other feature, just that one side.
So there wouldn't be many instances within a block face. Well,
Yeah, there would.
no, I'm just trying to think. I'm just trying to do the block, but if the other side was behind it, I live on 65th, so 65th and 64th is houses. And you've got that, so on a block, I couldn't do anything there, but if I was just on 65th, that block face I could, but then it was gonna be hard for me to do anything if I don't own the property behind me.
If you change it to block and you are backing up to SF1 or SF2.
Right, no, I
right,
understand
okay.
that, I understand that, but say it's block face,
Mhm.
you're not gonna have very deep,
It won't fit.
it won't fit.
Right.
Yeah.
Two.
I mean, I'm just trying to grasp my head around that.
And
to
you would
try
need
to-
the whole block face,
Yeah.
yeah.
You'd need both sides of the street.
So
And then
that's,
you'd have to close the
but
street.
that's one of the problems I have, because this is so tailored to the fine point, and having this apply to the entire city is just not, I'm having trouble getting around that.
I agree with that for D as well. Limiting to 45 as a blanket statement. I think that's,
Puts a cap on the whole city.
yeah, I don't like that. I think it should be the other way around. I don't think that we should limit to 45 feet. Not to change the subject, but
No.
what you're saying.
But specific.
So I'm confused on that. So D1 is something separate than, I guess, D?
No.
So D1 is saying,
You can do, it's 45 to come up to go to 75, you've got to get a special request, specific use.
and that's what you don't like, Brandon? You don't want them to have to come back for specific?
Yeah, I think it's fine at 75.
But I think, so I understand the concern about applying something to the entire city, but I think that there is also a concern that there would be those instances where you could have a 75-foot building appearing in a mixed-use neighborhood where, they do butt right up against single-family dwellings. And so I think that this is actually, the way I see this, is it's a good old-fashioned compromise, which is, okay, we acknowledge that there might be some apartment buildings being built in these areas, How about we say they can only go up 45 feet? And in those instances where a 75-foot apartment building would be appropriate, you can come ask for a specific use. It's not actually blanketly saying you can never do this.
And I could be wrong about this. This feels like it's about a case that we've heard before. It feels like it's about a specific couple cases that we've heard. And I feel like that now we're applying that on East 19th Street and South 140. It's across the city. I don't.
But my view on that would be, we've had 2 cases that were both voted down by the city council. So what we're saying is, if we don't have that in, then we're saying the city council's vote didn't matter, it would just go in. There was a reason that it went to city council and a reason that city council voted no.
I think
on those
even-
specific cases, right?
But I'm just saying, that's just 2. There could be many more that we haven't heard yet.
I don't think it's about height. I think both those cases would still bring out the same amount of opposition, even at 45. And they would vote it down, or they would, the opposition would be here just in the same numbers at 45 feet. They wouldn't want it even at 45.
I agree with you.
I agree on that one. I agree with that.
It's hard for me to get behind something that's just tailored to 2 very specific
Let me
instances.
ask a question.
Can I respond to some of these things?
No, sir. No, sir. We've already had the public hearing.
So let me ask a question. So if we've had these 2 specific cases and they were both voted down by the city. If this passes and it passes without this amendment, and these HDR designations are in these neighborhoods, in these specific spots, is that all now null and void? I mean, so can somebody come in now and say, okay, well now, it's HDR, we can build our apartment complex there?
If it is zoned HDR already and they don't need a zone change, they could construct a vertical mixed-use development with these regulations, but it also has a 50-foot rear setback adjacent to residential. So there's additional precautions.
So if that happened, in some sense, I think that's sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? It goes against what was intended to happen. Right?
Could you expand on that?
It subverts something that city council voted on.
I could be wrong. I'm not sure if our job is to agree with city council. Like, we're just providing a recommendation, and I feel like.
And I agree. But my concern is it's about something bigger than agreeing with city council. It's about what the process intended to happen. And we're just saying, well, we're throwing that out now, and we're just going to change the law.
Well, it's about the Tech Terrace deal on 19th. If you remember right, that building was 5 feet from the alley. And now this is saying it's going to be 50 feet. And so that project couldn't happen right there. So I think there's additional safeguards in place as it's written.
Setbacks restrict a lot of where this will ever even be done.
I'm still going to go, we're making recommendations to the city council. If it's the city council's decision to not accept it, they're going to have the opportunity to say, no, we don't accept it. So they've got their voice at that point too.
Agree.
But what is wrong with them coming and doing it a specific use and coming to us and us listening to them and us making a decision based on anything over 45?
Because we're using, in my opinion, I'm using 2 instances that's going to dictate my decision for the rest of the city. And I can't do that. I mean,
why don't they have to come back each time somebody wants to put that type of development in and say, hey, we still don't want this? I mean, I'm just turning the question back around on you of like, from the other perspective.
Well, I mean, I'm saying there may be one in Southwest Lubbock that comes up in the next 6 months that we go, no, that shouldn't be a 75-footer either.
I can't make
I'm just saying we're taking
that blanket,
our ability
like,
out.
I haven't seen the site plan, I haven't seen anything. I'm just unwilling to say, hey,
No,
45
never.
feet, that's it, unless you come to us. I think, I just don't want to
I mean,
handcuff development
that's
like
what
that.
people, That's,
So,
that's
Kristen,
sort
on
of
the
what we're here
university
for,
one?
right? But if we sort of zone it like, yeah, it's okay, go ahead, then they don't come here anymore and ask us. They just go ahead and do it. But by putting specific use on it, then we can at least go, yes, it's appropriate for this space. No, it's not appropriate for that space.
I hear you.
So where do we come into the 45 and the 75? How is that determined that that is an appropriate height for this specific HDR? How do we come up with that?
Well, that was what was proposed by the.
But it's in the UDC,
Yes,
right,
it's what
already?
was
So how
adopted,
does the
yes.
UDC come up
75.
with that 75? How did they come about?
So the apartments, if you're going to construct only apartments, not mixed use, you have that 45-foot height limit. Mixed use, we were taking into consideration typically, your first floor is going to be that retail commercial space. Think about a 15-foot, ceiling height, and then you get 4 stories of apartments on top of that. So your 5-story building, you still have the 4 stories of apartments, which you would have if you were doing only an apartment project, and then you have that additional floor of the retail.
So that's logical. That makes
So,
sense to me.
so on I keep going back to both these cases because I know that's what this is about. The university case, those were R1s, right? On the block.
Adjacent to South Overton,
Yes.
they were zoned A1, which will come over as MDR, not HDR. So they would
Okay.
still need a zone change.
So it'd still be it would not be HDR.
It would not,
Yeah. So it'd still have to come to us.
yes.
On 19th Street, it's mixed uses, right? So
Yes.
it's not all HDR.
Nope.
So-
Mixed use is a good.
There's a small piece of HDR. It'll be heavy commercial, neighborhood commercial, and single-family residential SF2.
I'm for leaving it as is. Option A.
I'm for A2.
Okay, so let's show, we got to call it. Is everybody ready to call, or you want to discuss some more?
Yes.
You okay? You good? All right, so,
Mr. Chair, I just feel like I need to remind y'all, if you have opposing motions, you can do that. I just don't want anybody to feel like,
okay.
any of you feel like you can't.
We're not
Vote
making a
however you
motion
want.
right now, but
No, I know.
whenever, okay. Okay, so show of hands, leave as is, no proposed amendments. City staff, per city staff comments. That also goes along with the McClendon Holman, and then the item C, Cindy Prattis and Richard Murphy. Show of hands. And then item D, Stephen Fox amendment for capping 75 to 45. Show of hands. Okay. So what would you, it is A, okay. All right, next, item 11, buffer yard landscaping. City staff had no comments or no proposed amendments. McClendon Holman Group had no change to the current language. So that's,
So
why is that even on there?
Because they did.
So 11 needs, go ahead.
Question for legal. So when we do that, do we vote on 10 or do we just say leave it as is? I mean,
11A.
11A.
Oh, yeah, I would include the vote, just to be clear.
Okay, thank you.
Item 12, minimum connection spacing by street classification. City staff says, okay, this measure edge to edge. Terry proposed amend the table to read measured between the nearest edges of driveway throats. And then goes on, or provide graphics similar to what is included in the text dot access management manual. This removes any ambiguity.
You're okay with that?
This is nerd language. So,
Hey.
B, okay.
Whoa.
Card carrier.
Dang. All right, so this point moving, so 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, these were all motions made from
The floor.
our last meeting. So before we even touch this, has city staff reviewed this? Has legal staff reviewed this? Has everybody, have Terry and Mont, have y'all had time to look at this? Because that was I'll kind of lead it, this is my opinion, that, the way that we did that, I don't know how we got to that point, but it seemed, we need to organize this better. That just shooting from the hip, from the floor, and asking people to we need time to vet it, we need to look at it, I want to communicate with y'all. And, I don't know if there's something on here that, when we start getting into, when some of this, Adam Hernandez's request. I mean, I've heard some people say legally you don't have the authority to do that. And what's being put in front of us, are we really allowed to look at and comment on, or what do we?
You can recommend changes to the zoning map, but yes, how it's written, it's vague. We don't have specific properties to show you. So if you wanted staff to do that, we would need some time to put that together.
Amortization, or we're talking about amend the abandonment ordinance? 12 months to 6 months? I mean, I
think that's state law, the 12 months. No? Okay.
Wow. That's power. That's dangerous. So my point to everybody here, I guess, for those that were present at the last meeting, are you comfortable discussing this? Do you want to go through the exercise of discussing it without having any commentary from city staff, or do you want to?
I think you're on the right line. I think that, we've got 4 more of these reviews.
Yeah.
2 semi-annual for 2 years, and I just think the next time we do this, that an amendment, it should be communicated that a requested amendment should go to city staff first before it comes to us. Because like right now, I feel like this is just to us with no comments from city staff. And I would, if I was y'all, I wouldn't like that. And I don't like voting on something that y'all haven't.
Can we create a formal way of presenting a citizen to present an amendment? That's
Ultimately, if it's a public hearing, they can say anything to you all.
okay.
Well, I just think that it should come through staff.
Yeah.
Before it comes to our vote. And so I think next time, if there's a public hearing, we'll say, okay, we've heard all these. Now it's going to go to staff, and we're not even going to attempt to have our meeting like we did last time. It's just, okay, we hear you. And so next time, everything has to go to staff first before we have this meeting, I think.
No, I agree. I agree with that. I'd like to just point out the last meeting, it was said that that folks in the crowd did not have an opportunity, or they didn't realize they had to submit it that day. And so that's why I wasn't ready to move that day on those.
Yeah.
I agree with you. There should be some sort of formalized process, even if that's us saying, hey, we're not going to hear anything from the floor. You're welcome to say whatever you want to, but we're going to consider it after city staff has a chance to look at it. I think that's absolutely, I agree with that.
So do y'all want to get into the parking requirements, or do you want to give staff an opportunity to look at this and have a rebuttal response? Or?
I'd like for city staff to review it, and then we have a discussion about it, because they're going to be able to get the pieces of the puzzle together, and we can ask them specific questions.
Well, and then and some of them you got in, there's 4 or 5 asks for recommendations, and some of them, I would say to me, on some of them make sense, some of them don't, and trying to figure out.
Yeah, like asking about amortization. I needed some specifics of what the city can and cannot do with regards to what's in play with the state. Because the state has control over some of that already.
Right.
And are we taking that into consideration?
Right. This is a discussion we had before at the last time.
The staff would know that information, and I could ask that question and get more direction before making a decision.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about 14? That one we did kind of discuss at the last one.
Yeah, 14
Yeah,
is.
we did.
14 is that.
I wrote that down.
That's the one where they're taking the 6 mixed-use districts or CB districts and combining them into 3.
M3, what was it? We
Yeah.
consolidated, which is a great thing.
Yeah.
And Kristen, what was your thoughts on that?
I'm fine with that.
That was this
We
one.
reduced it, yes. That one.
Yeah, I'm good with that one.
So you didn't have any, city staff didn't have any opposition to that, so 14A. So, and then you get into 15 non-conforming uses of zoning map. There's some requests in there that are
I will say, you know, I think all three of these ask that downzone existing conflicting zoning or non-conforming zoning. We do have a project waiting where we're going to do a zoning map analysis for the entire city and determine areas that have inappropriate zoning and bring those to you so you can correct the zoning map. So we are planning on doing that in the very near future.
So you're thinking some of this is putting the cart before the horse on some of it possibly?
Yes.
Okay, see, that's a perfect example of formalizing this some way because.
If it went to them, yeah.
Yeah, because what we're going to do today, we have to vote on all these once, but we have one vote. We have one motion. So what we're talking about doing is postponing this to the next P and Z meeting so that we all have time to go educate ourselves on 13 through 17, but it sounds like 14 could drag out quite a bit longer, waiting on y'all to pull together a map and. Not 14. Not 15. 15, I'm sorry, 15. And so, I mean, that's a perfect example of, I don't want to, I hate to hold up 1 through 12 or all of these for one, based on one, and it may delay it for 3 months for all we know.
Could the vote be to delay addressing the downzoning to after that exercise?
No, probably just, you're going to either approve or deny each of these items, which
Okay.
ones you want, but it would be appropriate to ask city staff to put it on your next meeting.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I think Robbie told me at one point, and I don't know, maybe I'm misremembering this. Well, so I'm waiting for him to correct me if I'm misremembering, but that map that you're going to look at and reevaluate things and rezone things that are inappropriate now and so on, that can't happen until we actually pass the UDC, is that correct?
We would.
UDC is already passed.
I mean, well, with the amendments and, is that correct?
Well, we would prefer to do it after October 1st when the adopted UDC
Yeah.
goes into effect.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the CIP for the zoning map analysis? Okay.
Yeah. So was I remembering that right? Except I got the part of it.
Yeah, I mean, what Kristen said is right. It's really optimum. You have the comp plan and it kind of mandated the UDC and then the zoning map analysis basically is to follow that, so.
So that is in a sense putting the cart before the horse.
Yes, well,
Yeah.
I said yes before I.
Okay, but.
Yeah.
More or less.
So that was the next, yeah, that was one of the things I said. So we can make a motion now and say we deny all this until that gets resolved, until item 15, we've had something to go off of on that. Or we can postpone to the next meeting, October 7th,
5th.
5th.
So is there issue with 13 and 16? Because 15 and 17 will be that zoning map.
Let me clarify something. You can't postpone part of this to the next meeting. This is the issue
Right.
that came up
It's the
that
whole
one day.
thing.
Yes, because whenever staff has it ready for you to review will be with UDC amendments.
Right.
And depending on what the content is of the UDC amendment, may or may not have to have joint public hearing again.
So anything that we don't want to include as an amendment, we have to deny, correct?
Right.
But that's not saying it's denied for all time. That means we can come back and revisit it at a more appropriate time when other things have fallen into place.
Yeah, remember, we have 4 more of these.
Right. So denial is not necessarily like putting our stamp of permanency on it.
Correct.
Right.
So then what happens is UDC takes effect on the 1st as it was voted.
As approved May 9th, yes.
So.
Because it's already ordinance.
Yes.
So I say let's put this
Well,
to
I'm
bed
just-
tonight.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's go.
what I'm saying is if the longer we postpone this, the UDC goes unchanged. I mean, there are no amendments to the UDC as it is today. So we've got to come up with a more formal way to get these things to come through so that, I'm not going to state. Okay. Go ahead.
So can we
Oh,
accept all of them and say we deny 15?
You can't vote in the negative. You can vote in the negative on
You
these?
can. This is a very unique unique situation for y'all because it's multi-component. So yes, you can.
So would we do it in the following way? Because James has been taking great notes.
Okay, this is.
Yeah.
Hit it, James.
We approve the following amendments.
Go ahead.
No, this
Yeah.
is what I was going to do. Do I have to list out all the sections, or can I say, according to the proposed amendments, number 1 to 10, this is what we're recommending?
I'd like you to say the letters.
Okay. No, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And
I don't have
would
to
we
read out
then,
Section 39.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Please don't.
do we also need to say, so we move these amendments forward and name them and say, and deny these amendments?
Right.
Or just you could say deny the remainder.
Deny the remainder.
But,
I got it.
okay, so
Hit it.
have y'all, okay.
Let me take a drink.
All right. So we all need a drink.
Are we doing it? Yeah.
Nothing. We're not doing 13. We're 15, 16, or 17. Make your motion.
Okay.
Make your motion.
Mr. Chair, I make the motion that we approve the following amendments. Amendment 1, items B and C. Amendment 2, item B. Amendment 3, Amendment A. Amendment 4, numbers A and C. Number 5, Amendments A through J.
Very good.
Amendment 6, item A. Item 7, Amendment C. Item 8, Amendment A. Amendment 9, item A. Amendment 11, item A. Amendment 12.
10.
Oh, excuse me, Amendment 10A, 11A, 12B, 14A, and deny items 13, 15, 16, and 17.
Second.
All right, that's a good motion, Shelley. We have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, you dismiss us.
We're adjourned.